You just did the Kanye concert, and you have 4 kids, and you still have time to go skating.
Monday night, when we're on the call, Kanye announced it was happening. So I had 2 days to make this happen for Thursday.
Wow.
Tyler, the creator, every year will post black mags and say, we started dressing like this because of this music video. And that's like my first video, Black Mags.
Why do you think that video took off? I love that video, but why do you think it hit at the right moment?
There's been times where I've been almost evicted or I didn't have a home to live in. I would rather be broke trying to find the next thing I was passionate about than just getting a job. Chance is the one that got me from doing music videos to live shows.
How? What's up, everybody? My name is Brazil, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, I always say I have a special guest, but this guest is special in so many ways. For one, I've known him for like over 20 years. I actually met him when I was like 12, 13, somewhere in the Midwest.
On the internet, we met. No, did we meet in person and then on the internet?
It was back on AOL Instant Messenger times, a long time ago. This is my buddy, Joe Esquivel, GL Joe from Chicago. He's a music video director. He's a stage designer. He's a creative director. He's a producer. He's an overall beautiful thinker. He's somebody who I've worked with on and off on personal and business projects for years, and I've always respected him. I've always trusted him. I always knew he had a good heart, and he's also a skater. Hey, we got a lot of skaters this month, and I'm really, really happy to see how far he's come on his career. And he was actually the second guest ever on this podcast, and we did it, virtually when I was just starting, and I was very nervous to be on camera, and now we're here. Episode 70 with Mr. GL Joe.
Hey, what up?
What up, bro?
What up, Brazil?
First of all, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Just turned 40.
I did just turn 40.
How do you feel?
I feel good. And our 4th daughter was born on my 40th birthday.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Are all 4 of those your biological daughters? Do you have one?
I have 3 biological and then 1 stepdaughter.
Now, how old were you when you had Lily, your first daughter?
When she was born, I was 25. Yeah, I was 25 years old.
The reason I bring that up is because, my podcast, we interview a lot of artists, a lot of creative people, and an overwhelming belief that we have as artists is that we better do all of our creative, fun shit now, because one day when I have kids, that's all going to stop. No. But you had a kid at 25, and you've been super successful since then.
And like, it's funny because I'll hear people say, like, oh, I can't because I have kids. I'm like, bro, I have 4, and I'm still out here. I'm still doing it. I'm still traveling. I'm still skating. I'm still doing all the extracurriculars like throwing skate comps and starting random things and helping the young generation out. And but the goal is what people think is like they have their family life at home is separate from their work life. But for me, I combined them. Like I remember when Lily was like 4 months old, I had her strapped to my chest. Like helping Morocco. Has Morocco been on here yet?
He's next week's guest.
Oh, yeah. So shout out to Morocco. But I remember being on his videos and helping him direct, and she'd be strapped on my chest while we're, directing rap videos. Yeah. And so she was raised on set. And she just directed her first music video last month.
Did she?
Yeah.
That's amazing. How old is she now?
She's in 8th grade. She's 14.
Wow. Yeah, it's funny because obviously having kids is a whole thing that you have to take care of.
Yes.
It takes time and effort and money and emotional energy. And if you have kids with the wrong person, it can really fuck you up.
Oh, yeah.
And I think in our culture, we saw a lot of examples in movies and in TVs of either bad parents or parents that wish they weren't parents or kids that ruin people's lives or vice versa. Or parents ruin the kid's life or kids ruin the parent's life.
Yeah.
It's not to say that that's not true. That does happen. It's a big world. A lot of things can happen. Yeah. But we see very few stories of people that are like, baby strapped to the chest, directing a rap video, still have time to go skate, still feel like you can be you, still working with major artists. Yeah. Your biggest contracts came after having kids.
It did. And when I had Lily was like at the height of my career. Well, not the height of my career, because my height of my career is like now, and it's still going up. But I had just started becoming known as a music video director, and I had a daughter, and I just didn't let it stop me. I never allowed that to be a crutch. A lot of people will say oh, this and that, I can't. And it's funny because I didn't even start traveling until after I had a daughter, my firstborn. Yeah. And so that never stopped me. And all my biggest jobs came after her. And sometimes, yeah, I would have to be gone for 2 months or a month, you know, on a job. But that's fine. That's just 1 month, you know. And
we were just talking about that before we started recording, right? About how you are so in demand that you could be working full time.
Yes.
But you choose not to work full time so that you can spend time with your family.
Yes.
But you're still doing, you just did the Kanye concert.
Yes.
And you have 4 kids and you still have time to go skating.
Yeah. Yeah. We go, I skate every Sunday on Step on Sundays. We have a big group of guys. We're all like between 30 and 40 years old, and it's called Step on Sundays. We go out to a different skate park every Sunday. And, you know, everyone in my house, they just know on Sundays between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m., that's what I'm doing.
Yes.
And we have it scheduled out. So
yeah, and I think that's part of the communication too, right? A lot of times we'll say, oh, she doesn't let me do anything. First of all, unless somebody is like literally like a government official, and even then, people shouldn't let or not let you do anything, right? If you're somebody who knows, okay, part of what makes me happy, part of what gives me energy to be a contributor and a provider is having time with my boys to go skate.
Yeah.
I show up, I pay the bills, therefore, also on Sundays is my skate time. And everybody knows that's when daddy is skating.
Yeah.
And as long as you have that communication, people know, okay,
yeah,
you bring something to the table and you need your time.
Yeah. And, you know, and I still even make time to like, if it's not on Sunday, to go film a section. Like, you know, when me and Gabe, I just made a section of Gabe Telemantis before he left Chicago to move to New York.
Yeah, I saw.
I wanted to make him a goodbye to Chicago section. And we just scheduled it, you know. And it's funny, though, because of that's when the first Vultures listening party was being produced. So in between him landing tricks, I was then on the phone calling people, trying to make things happen.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that mixture. So you're on the phone with the Kanye team producing the Vultures show in Chicago, but you're also making time to do a passion project, filming rollerblading with friends, something that's not going to make money, it's not going to get millions of views. You're doing it because you love it.
Yep.
How important is it to have that balance?
I think it's very important. It's super important, and you need that. You need that, or else, like as a creative, then you'll dry out, and then you might as well just go work at an agency and just make, you know, Downy commercials that play between, you know, the unpaid for Hulu subscription. Like, you know, that's where I think that leads you to. But there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want. Like, if you're just like, hey, I like this world and I just want a 9 to 5 and, you know, and everything, that's fine for you. But like for me, I always like to create things that haven't been done before, or at least try to create things that haven't been done before. And
because what would it feel like if you made some shit that everybody's already seen?
It's just boring. And you know, and like a lot of times I'll take those jobs just for work, you know, for money because I have to pay rent and bills, but like I don't talk about them.
Dick for dollars?
Yeah, Dick for back when I was
Let's
Dick for
tell
dollars.
the story. You know, it's funny because on the podcast that's coming out next week, by the time you guys see this one, that podcast is already out with Morocco Vaughn. We talked about Dick for dollars. Oh. I told him because he never knew what it meant.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Joe has a pseudonym.
Yeah. It's actually, it was like a fake German name. It was Dickford and then last name Allers. But if you say it together, Dickford Allers. And that came about because I was hired to go direct a video for Bun B and Freddie Gibbs.
Yes.
And who else was it? Chip the Ripper,
With
back
Casey,
when he was Chip
right?
the Ripper. Yeah, with Casey.
Yeah.
And then Chuck English was in it too. And I wrote this like crazy, like what I thought was like my whole point of when I got into directing hip hop videos was that I wanted to do something different than like parking lot videos.
Right.
And so I had this really cool, like really interesting treatment, and they said yes to it. And then when we had to drive down to Austin.
For those who don't know, a treatment is the proposal for the music video.
Yes.
Right? Like when somebody says, hey, I want you to do my music video, you got to tell them, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah, you have to come up with
pitch an
pictures
idea.
and, you know, you have graphs and like drawings and words, a lot of words in there.
So you pitched them a great idea.
Yeah, and they
said
liked it.
yes.
They said yes. And so I was like, cool, I'm going to do this. And so we bring the whole crew down to South by Southwest in Austin. And when we get there, we do some location scoutings, we find it. And then for some reason, I get a call from the producer and the person who made the song, the producer, and they're just like, hey, they just think it's just too hard on them to do all these locations and blah, blah, blah. It's like, can we just do a parking lot video? And I was just like, bro, this is I got into this to not do parking lot videos.
Yeah.
And that's when I wasn't like, now if someone asked me to do a parking lot video, I'd be excited because then I would make that parking lot video interesting. I wasn't thinking like that back then.
You could innovate a parking lot video.
Yes, you could. And I kind of did.
You guys had that like rotating.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden everyone started using it after that video too. It was like everywhere.
Little Z-axis rotation.
Yeah. But I told them, I was like, okay, fine. But then if we're not doing my original treatment, then I don't want my name on it.
Right. Brazi, sit. Sienta.
Sorry.
We're talking about treatments here. Sit. Listen to Uncle Joe talk about treatments.
And I told them, I was like, look, if I'm not going to get my treatment, then I don't want my name on it. They're like, well, you have to put they need a name. And so then I just came up with Dickford Allers because that's what I felt like. I felt like a prostitute and I was just doing it for the money. And back then I was just all like, I don't do it for the money. I would always put my entire budget and I'd say almost every music video I've ever done, I never got paid for.
Basically same.
Yeah. And it's
no profit margin.
No matter how bigger and bigger the budget got, I put all that money to the budget.
And let's explain that to people, right? So like, let's imagine, it doesn't matter if they're giving you a $5,000 budget for a video or a $50,000 budget for a video. Every director that does music videos wants to do other shit. We want to do movies or better videos or whatever, or even music videos that are epic. And we say, well, if they give me a $10,000 budget, if I make it look like it costs $50, then they'll give me $50 on the next one, which they never do, or sometimes they do, right? And you say, I won't get paid on this one, so I can make the video look, and so there's so much sacrifice there that at least let me do the great idea.
Yeah, and that's what I was about, was like getting the great idea out.
Yeah.
And so, and it's funny because of, I gave them a spelling where you wouldn't even know that it said Dickford Allers. It was Dickford and then Allers. But I don't know, somewhere along the lines, it came out and I saw it on MTV and it was DIK, the number 4, and then DOLLA money sign.
Damn, so somebody straight up
someone, and it says directed by Dick $4. I was like, oh, that's funny.
But the proper spelling is Dickford.
Yeah, Dickford. And that used to be my Instagram handle for a while. And I can't remember who I was. Actually, I had like one of those moments where I was just like, I felt like I moved on from that. And, you know, and I just matured and I didn't. It just felt wrong. The reason why I changed my name to that, it just didn't feel like it fit me anymore. So I changed it back to GL Joe.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. That's such an interesting story because, you want to be able to execute your idea, and a parking lot video was so, like, deflating.
Yeah.
But now, you could fuck up a parking lot. Now, I was even thinking, like, could I do something great in a parking lot?
Yes.
I'm like, well, at least I have a toolkit of things I can create. So if I got to a plain parking lot, I would think, how can I make it more interesting? And just ask that question like 1,000 times until you get something.
Yeah, I mean, Ye's current creative director, Oss, he made, I didn't know this, but he made one of my current favorite music videos, which is a Kodak Black video. I can't remember what song it is. It's his newest song that's out right now. It's an all black and white video. And it's just like him and Kodak Black's homies. But the B-roll that he chose to show and the way he showed it sets it apart from any just me and my homies hanging out in an abandoned lot.
Taste, huh?
Like it was, and it doesn't even feel like me and my homies hanging out in an abandoned. It feels like a high end fashion, like.
Ooh, I gotta see that. What's it called?
It's good.
Yeah,
it's good. Anna actually put me onto it. But yeah,
because you can do a great. It's funny because I tell artists that when they have low budget and they come to me with a crazy idea, I say instead of doing a cheap execution of a big idea, let's do an incredible execution of a simple idea.
Yeah.
Like if it's just a rooftop video, let's make it the best rooftop video ever. Right? It would get more plays than having a shitty, underdeveloped, grandiose idea.
Yes,
unless that's the theme of it.
Yeah. And who is it? Da Vinci always says like simple is better. Yeah. So the cleaner, the simpler it is. And that's like my first video, Black Mags, was a very simple video, great execution.
Classic.
And now like everyone I meet to this day still knows that video.
Why do you think that video took off? I love that video, but why do you think it hit at the right moment?
Because it hit at the right moment. Like it was at this cross-platform of hip-hop changing. Like money left the music industry.
Right.
And
then
then
streaming just started going
on. We weren't even streaming yet. We were stealing.
Right. Oh, that was before. That was in the cross.
Yeah, that was the
like
MySpace.
End of Napster, MySpace getting into.
Yep.
Spotify wasn't even a thing.
No, none of that exists. This was back in 2007.
Right. We barely had the iPhone.
YouTube just started.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And so it was Soulja Boy's video was the first viral video on YouTube.
Yeah, crank that. Yeah.
And thanks to him, he's the one who, I don't know a lot of people know, he's the one who paved the way, Soulja Boy paved the way for people getting paid on YouTube.
Yes.
Because he was getting, remember he'd always say, I get paid by my haters, because every time someone left a comment, he got paid a nickel.
Yes.
And those add up. And so he's just like, yeah, keep the hate coming.
Yes.
Keep it going. You're giving me a nickel every time you say you hate me.
Soulja Boy really did pioneer a lot. And
he did.
And he started his own viral dance.
Yeah.
He was investing in tech and video games and other weird stuff. At the time, we were like, what is he talking about?
Yeah.
But now we look back on it and you're like, oh, he was really on something.
Yeah. And he was like young. He was like 17 at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
so Black Mags. So, yeah. So that's the Cool Kids Black Mags music video. We'll play that on here. I remember, because we were all young filmmakers in Chicago, and when you dropped that one, it was like a cultural smash.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't a big budget video.
But it looked
it looked perfect.
Do you know how many times I've had like MTV producers be like, hey, where did you guys come up with the money to do that? Because they knew there was no money.
Right.
Like there was no money. I mean, when Drake had sent me a DM after I did that video. And like this is when he was first starting off. He wasn't Drake yet, you know. But
he was like best I ever had Drake, but still, it was Drake.
And he was just like, I only have $5,000, and I'm just like, I can't do that because you live in Canada. The only way I can do a $5,000 video is if you come to Chicago, and he just couldn't because of scheduling and stuff.
Yeah.
And like there's other big name rappers who. That's what they were throwing around was just a couple grand here and there. And again, I'm just like, in order for me to do that, my team is in Chicago. I can't do it without my team.
Yeah, you can pull favors locally.
Yes,
but flying to another city is like a whole.
Yeah, then
like
now you're paying full rate on everything.
Yeah.
And
but Black Mags, it was first of all, the choice to go black and white.
Yeah.
The way you guys filmed it, it was cinematographically done correct.
By Jake Zalewski.
Zalewski, shout out to Jake.
Yeah.
He worked with me on my Tyga Tyrese video. He's a skater too, right?
Yeah. He helped. He helped on the Vultures listening party Chicago one too. It brought him back.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then he DP'd Chance's. Chance did this private show. It wasn't too private. It was like 1,500 people, so it wasn't too private. But it was a small show for Chance.
Yeah,
and I brought Jake in to DP that. So we kind of reunited just recently because we didn't work together since Pennies, and then so that was like 15 years ago, and then now we just started working together again.
Wow. And I remember the Cool Kids also were a point of that transition of like the hipster kids.
Yeah, it was fashion. Because in hip hop, no one saw hip hop kids dress like that.
Right.
And I remember when our whole crew, before we did Black Mags, our whole crew went down to South by Southwest. And this is like, during the My Chang Hang Low,
I remember that.
Quadruple XL, white tees. And we show up all thrift store kids. And it was like Kid Sister, Flosstradamus, the Cool Kids, Mano, Hollywood Holt. Like we all like showed up.
That whole crew, yeah.
Yeah, and we went down there and we had like, because this was before they even made skinny jeans. So we would have to take
before skinny jeans.
Yeah, and so but we were wearing skinny jeans and we would make our own skinny jeans. And so we would take Gap women's long and leans, and they had a little flare, and then we would sew the flare out and then cut it off, and then we would have skinny jeans, and no one else was doing that. And then Kurt from Flosstradamus, he found this like store that had all this dead stock snapbacks because this was back when everyone was wearing flat brim fitted with the stickers.
The new eras,
Yeah, and so he found all of those like snapbacks from the 90s, and we all kept it a top secret, and we only told when someone came into the crew, we'd be like, all right, you had to be taken there, and we're like, you can't tell anyone,
right? And
so we were the only one wearing these snapbacks, these starter all the starter clothing, skinny jeans. And when we showed up to South by Southwest, we traveled in a big group, and everyone was just like, what the fuck, what is I remember people stopping us and being like, going like this, being like, why do you guys dress like this? And we're like, we're from Chicago.
That was such a baggy era. Over there, everybody was triple XL.
Yeah, and it blew everyone's mind. And with the sound, because of the Cool Kids, they had a very stripped back sound. At the time when it was very heavily produced.
Yes.
All the music at that time, it's like it was like on the out of the P. Diddy era of the big hits, right? And then the cool kids come in with this very stripped down, boombastic sound, and very you know, and and they had the thick rope chains and the thick gazelles, and because we were just finding the shit in the thrift stores, like we were finding gazelles in the thrift store, and we would just wear them because they were like $2. We were all like
bringing back like the Big Daddy Kane era,
yeah,
like
exactly,
yeah.
And then but then putting it with a new flair with Nike Dunks and then skinny jeans, and then it influenced so many people. It influenced the Pack, you know, and then who was it? Oh my God, what's his name? Goblin. The guy who did Goblin.
Goblin.
The album Goblin.
The album. I thought you meant.
No, what's his name? Why am I drawing a blank? Oh my God, he's like my favorite. The weird guy.
Goblin. Tyler the Creator.
Tyler the Creator. Like every year, will post Black Mags and say, this music video, we started dressing like this because of this music video.
Wow.
And, you know, he always gives credits to Chuck and Twan, and it's really cool. I love that he does that still to this day, even like last year.
Do you ever just sit with that? That art that you created influenced some of the biggest artists today.
Yeah. And because I remember then like getting mad at like some of the pop artists. Yeah. I think it was like when I saw Tyga. And I'm like, what? He's dressing like us. I was like, he's not a part of the scene. I'm like, what is he doing? You know, because we were very protective of the scene, you know? And we're like, this is our culture. And now he's out there wearing skinny jeans. But then like people started making skinny jeans, and then it was readily available. And then everyone was wearing the purple zip up American Apparel hoodie with the skinny jeans. And, you know, and then it was beautiful because of like at that time, it was like this huge mix of culture, because in Chicago, why I think this happened is because there's this area called Wicker Park, and at that time it was completely abandoned, and now it's like every banks and stores and coffee. It's like it's not what it used to be, an expensive rent and condos. But at that time,
is it like a yuppie area now?
It's super yuppie, and but at that time it was completely abandoned.
Right,
and all of those places were just filled. All the storefronts were closed down, and artists moved into them. And it was parties from Monday to Sunday, and they were all inclusive parties before everyone was like, be inclusive. No, that's just the way it was.
It was naturally that, not because it was culturally forced.
And you would have in the same party, you'd have a punk rock DJ, a house DJ, and a hip hop DJ, and everyone was learning and dancing and partying to all those types of music.
Yes.
Which, in my opinion, that's why I love house parties, because it brings like the goth kids and the hip hop kids and you know, all these different genres of people, because everyone's just looking for a space to like get drunk and party with their friends.
Yes.
You know, that's not a club. And then it brings them all together, and then new genres appear out of that. And I think that's one of the main things is like everyone left the city and moved to the suburbs. So you had all of these vacant places. And so everyone went to the city for cheap rent and lived in giant warehouses
and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I remember I lived in like a 4,200 square foot warehouse space for $600 a month. Like it was massive, you know? And like I still think about that place to this day because of the parties we threw and then the art projects that we were able to throw.
Yeah.
You know,
and how that all blends. That being involved in the art scene, being involved in the skating scene, and the different music genre scenes, that then when they say, hey, Joe, can you direct a music video for us? You're pulling from all these places. As artists, even if what you do is this style, the best artists are influenced by all kinds of other things that inform their decision here. The way somebody presents a painting might give you an idea for a framing for a shot, or vice versa, right? Like most of the stuff I study is outside of what I do.
Yeah.
Right? Like to inform what it is that I do. I get inspiration from other things. I'm like, oh, that architecture in Italy reminds me of something that I want to do. And you're just like, okay.
And it's funny you say, because that's actually something that's been driving me crazy recently, is when like a photographer is like, oh, these people, you know, this big pop star stole my look. And I'm like, well, you know, and for their new music video. And I'm like pause, like stop.
Yeah.
Like historically, music videos have always pulled from photographies, museums, art house films, major films, fashion, and they sample it all and then create something new.
Yes.
And I'm like, you can't go
That's
out
even
there
how we make treatments. Is we just rip photos from photography books and we say that.
Yeah. And it's like you can't go around and be like, they stole my look, they stole my idea. You can't do that because then that stops the progress of art.
Yes.
It stops it. And like you have to just, for me, if someone did that for me, I'd be like, oh, cool, I influenced that person. And,
that's a good way to look at it.
You know, and I'm like, wow, like I had an impact on them and they created this thing. Like, will there be a small part of me like, dang, why didn't they hire me? Sure. But a lot of these people complaining, they're not even music video directors.
Right.
And they're complaining. I'm like, well, if you really cared, then talk to your agent. That's an agent problem, and you should let your agent know that you should be doing music videos if everyone keeps stealing your looks from your art house films.
Right, and you can't really own a look anyway.
No, it's and a lot of
Who
times.
Who owns the 3-point lighting?
Oh my god,
a backlight, key light, fill light. Who owns that?
Yeah, and it's like there's this one person complaining recently. I don't remember their name, but they're complaining that someone stole and then so they did a side by side comparison.
Right,
and it didn't even resemble. Like, yes, it was some of the same locations, but there was like different concepts, and it's like, and then also the things that I'm like, yeah, but then that means you're stealing from Breakfast at Tiffany's, you know? Because I'm like, that's a look from I'm like, so who stole from who? You know, like you were influenced by Breakfast from Tiffany's, and then now a woman in a robe sitting at a high end like hotel looking out into the distance. That's been done 1,000 times. You can't claim that.
Right. Stealing would be like if I told somebody I made the Black Max video, so you should hire me.
Yeah.
That's stealing.
Which I've actually had that happen.
Really?
I stumbled upon someone's website, and they said they had a bunch of my music videos on there and saying they directed them. I thought that was really funny.
Wow.
They were from like, I can't remember where. I think they were from Michigan or something, and it didn't matter because
those Michigan people.
But no, it didn't matter because they weren't doing anything.
Right.
So I didn't feel threatened. I didn't even say. I just thought it was funny.
Yeah.
I was just like, that's funny. Hopefully they'll get some work. You know.
Who are you inspired by now? Oh, before we go to that, just real quick, just to wrap up the Black Mags conversation. Yeah. After you did Black Mags, and that was a cultural hit, Drake is DMing you. I think then Timberlake hit you up as well, like a bunch of
Timberland.
No,
Justin Timberlake. Yeah, you're right.
Timberlake. Yeah.
And then Kid Cudi was trying to get to me, but that also like I wish I would have gone to those Kid Cudi meetings, but my daughter was just born, and I couldn't hit the road because that was my first child, and so when you have your first child, you're very protective, you're very concerned.
Yeah.
You know, like. And now, like my fourth daughter was just born like last week, and I'm here in LA. But that's because of now we're just used to it. Like it's just it's fine. They're gonna survive.
Well, see, that's an example of somebody say, "See, you had a daughter and you couldn't meet with Kid Cudi." It's like it's fine. If Kid Cudi wants to work with you that bad,
he would have came to Chicago. We would have met up.
Exactly.
You know,
do
like,
Skype, do something.
Yeah, but no, he wanted me to go to Ohio,
right?
And because this was when he just had that first mixtape. You know,
right. This was before Man of the Moon, when Day and Night was really popping.
Yes, before the album Day and Night, like the mixtape Day and Night, and you know, I had people telling me Kid Cudi wants to work with you, and like at the time I was going through a really turmoil relationship that kind of skirted the trajectory of me becoming the like famous music video director that I saw myself as when I was in 7th grade. But that was fine because then I got into live production, which I enjoy 1,000 times more than ever I did directing a music video.
Well, live, you get to feel the reaction. In a music video, you assume that people see it. You might read the comments. A rapper might say, I love this video. But you don't feel somebody saying, ah!
You don't see the crowd reacting live when you hit the lights at the right time.
Like, that's somebody's whole date night. Somebody might have saved up all month to go to that one night at the concert. And because you chose to hit the light at that one time, you know what I love about concerts? One of my favorite things ever is before the main act goes on. You know, there's like the opening acts, and then sometimes they'll turn the house lights back on a little bit before the main act goes, is when the house lights dim. Yeah. Everybody goes like, oh shit, it's starting! And nothing's even happened. The lights just turned dark. Yep. I get goosebumps just thinking about it. Because usually when you go to like a concert, not a festival, but a concert of like a specific artist, you really love that artist, A. And B, you're surrounded with a bunch of other people that also love them, right? Like when I like somebody, I listen to them all the time. I'm like that annoying friend that always listens to that one artist. But when you go to a concert, everybody knows that. So when you just hear that first note, right, the decision that the lighting guy makes, the decision to hit the spotlight or not hit the spotlight, to come out, like all those micro decisions make such an epic human experience. So I can see why you like
Yeah. Well, and also there's
live.
no editing.
No editing.
There's no editing.
There.
There's not a month long of editing and back and forth after the music. After a live show is done, it's done.
Yeah.
You start tearing down and then you move and then you just get notes. And then if there's a next one, then you just fix those notes in the next one.
Yes.
Or make sure that cue actually happens on time.
You took me backstage at Chance the Rapper's
like first
acid rap
the first
theater
tour.
concert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that in Chicago or here in LA?
I think it was in LA.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked on a tour bus. I kind of did like a half-ass interview with you there when I was doing Burn the Boats back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
And you took me there, and I remember we were at the front of house, and we saw the line around the block, and you're like, yo, Chance is really, he's going to be somebody. And then you took me again to like a college show he did.
Yeah.
Was that the first artist who you worked with on tour?
Well, Chance is the one that got me from doing music videos to live shows.
How?
And well, so when he came out with this before 10 Day, he had a couple singles that were floating around. Mm-hmm. And I was very like on the cusp of like all the Chicago music. I was very in tune with all what the, they weren't even younger generations because I was young back then, but like what was coming up and the new music that was constantly coming up. And at that time, Chicago was a hot spot. And that same summer that Chance came out, Chief Keef came out, all of that came out at the same time.
Did you know Chance already?
No.
Personally?
So I heard his song, and it was funny because I was looking for him. And he was looking for me. He didn't know who I was. He was just like, I want the guy who did Black Mags. Okay. Black Mag, and I think he said this in interviews where he's like, Black Mags is what kind of made me want to become a rapper. And because, he saw that video on MTV growing up, and he's like, whoa, these guys are from Chicago. I'm from Chicago. I want to do this.
Yeah.
And so it's funny because at that time, he didn't really have any management. He had like 6 friends that were claiming to be his manager.
This was before
and I
Pat
would try to
came
find
in.
them. Yeah. And then I was trying to find them. And
so he knew about you through the underground of Chicago. You knew about him.
And we were trying to find each other. And then by that time, 10 Day had already came out. And then I wanted to do a song on there called Family Ties or something like that. But someone else got it because I couldn't find him. And so someone within his circle did that video, which is fine. And then so we finally met up. And he was like, all right, I want you to start writing music videos for acid rap. And this is before it came out. It was really cool to hear acid rap and all the different renditions that it happened in. But then he had an idea that he was going to have his roommate and best friend at the time do all his music videos. So it had a cohesive message.
Didn't you call me around that time about some Chance videos?
Oh, yeah, because I was going to do Chainsmoker.
Chainsmoker.
Yeah.
I remember you sent me a treatment for it or something. I remember looking at a PowerPoint about Chainsmoker.
Yeah. Because we wanted to make real clouds in an environment. And that was like the whole gag of it is we're making a real cloud in an environment. I don't know why, but...
So he wanted you to do music videos. You weren't available.
Yeah.
But he knew he wanted to work with you.
Yeah, well, no, it wasn't I wasn't available. He had a different... By the time we connected... He had a different idea, and that was to have his best friend do all his music videos for acid rap, which I was like, I told him, like, that's a great idea, actually, that you should run with that because then they're all cohesive and they tell a story. Yes. And, Austin Vesely was his name, and he made a couple from 10 Day, and they were great. Yeah. These no budget music videos that were just simple and effective.
But if he knows him, if he's his friend, and it's cohesive.
That's what I'm saying.
Cohesiveness goes a long way.
Yeah, and I'm like, you're like that. Just go. So then he asked me to start doing his stage visuals, and I was like, sure, I'll do your stage visuals.
But how did that work? First time you meet Chance.
Where were we?
So do you guys just meet and say, sorry, we couldn't work together?
No, it was all through like emails and like Instagram DMs, stuff like that.
Or MySpace back in the day.
Yeah. And no, by that time MySpace was done. It was Facebook fully, and. Man, where did I first meet Chance? I can't remember where. I think, so then this is now Pat, the manager, then stepped in and saw all the emails, me trying to contact him. Pat, the manager, really is the one that brought us together. And I went over to Pat's office, and Chance was there, and then we all talked, and we really connected, and... and then that's when he told me, he's like, hey, I want my friend to do them all. I was like, cool. He's like, but can you make my concert visuals?
Nice.
And so
for acid rap?
It was like, this is still before acid rap came out. And this was like his Metro shows.
Okay.
So at the Metro,
so for those who don't know, concert visuals, when you see like something on the LED wall or on the projector behind them, it's that. Like you create things that complement the music on stage.
Yeah, and I had never really done that, but I was
Right.
music video. It's you just make
idea.
yeah, it's easy to do, and I shouldn't say easy. It was in my wheelhouse to do.
Yes.
And so I started doing that, and then when he got big enough to do his first tour for Acid Rap, they called me and said, "Hey, do you want to go on tour with us to do the visuals?" And I said, "Sure."
Yeah.
And Chance called me up and asked me. I was like, "Yeah, no problem." And then Pat calls me right after that and goes, "Hey, Joe, if you want to come on tour, you have to learn how to run the lights. You have to stage design, and you need to be able to take it down and put it back up every day." And I was like, "I'm a music video director. I don't do that."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, think about it." And I was like, "Well, I want to go on tour. That sounds like a lot of fun." And it was only supposed to be for a month, so I was just like, "Yeah, this should be easy." And then but I lived in that 4,200 square foot warehouse space. And so I was like, all right, let's do this. And we brought the whole setup in my living room and set the whole stage and lighting and truss up. Because I had like 25-foot ceilings. So we were able to do that. And they brought someone in, Mike Apostolos, who then now is his current
Shout out to Mike,
Yeah, after I only did one tour with Chance, and then from there Mike took over. Because I was just like, I was on the road for 2 months, and I didn't want to leave my child like alone. I wanted to be there every day for her. So I was just like, I can't do this. And Mike was destined to be this. This was he was still in high school when he was teaching me how to do this. He started when he was like 14. Wow. And so like this was his destiny. And so, and I saw that. And then him and Chance had this like really great energy together, and I saw that. And so I was just like, no, this is the team right here. And I like stepped back. And but Mike had came in and taught me in like 2 nights how to DMX lighting, how to program the lighting, how to run it, all while I had a team of editors behind me editing all the content, because I couldn't physically do it, but I had the vision. So they were executing my vision. And then I brought in my friend Bob, who is currently Chance's visual. Yeah, he's still currently Chance's visual director and like for his live shows. And, but Bob didn't do that then. I just knew he was good with AV. Like,
let's pause and talk about that for a second. What I'm hearing you say is you have an opportunity where they're saying, I want you to do a job that you don't even know how to do. Figure it out.
Yeah.
And then say yes.
This has been my whole career.
Yes.
Literally my whole career is I just was like, I think I could figure that out. And like not to jump ahead, but when I moved to LA after all the Chance stuff, when I moved to LA, I was with you, working with you, and this was after the first Build a Beast event.
Yep. Well, and you got something here in your nose too, by the way.
Oh, probably some sweat.
Yeah, you're good.
It's hot in here, guys. Well, it's not really. I'm fucking wearing winter clothes like I'm in Chicago. But it was after the first Build a Beast, and we depleted all the money to make that event happen, and we were sharing an office with Nelson, and Nelson was sharing that office with another group of guys called Sub Over Hype.
Yes.
And I overhear them talking about making a short film in Chicago, and they're like, I want to get these musicians called Flosstradamus involved, and I'm like, those are my childhood friends. And so I just quickly turn around. I don't even really talk to these guys before.
Yes.
Because I kept to myself. And I was just like, hey, I could call them right now and see if they're interested. And they were like, what? And I'm like, yeah. And then they weren't available. But then I found a group that they did like from Chicago that were available, the Oh My's. And anyways, the Oh My's fit for that scene. For Flosstradamus in that scene, it didn't make sense because it was in a lounge. They wouldn't be playing, EDM, in this
like a hotel lounge.
In a hotel lounge. And the Oh My's are like this beautiful, classic sounding Chicago band. Right. And they made sense. But I remember, who's now one of my good friends, Jake, he hits me up and he's just like, hey, because I was like, well, I do production in Chicago, so I could help hire or facilitate, get you guys whatever you need, gear and stuff. And he's like, do you want to UPM it? I didn't even know what that meant, but he sent this to me in email. He's like, hey, Joe, I was thinking about you. Would you want to UPM this? And I'm like, I don't even know what a UPM means. Right. But he had how much it paid in that same email. And I'm like, well, I need that much amount of money right now.
Right.
And I was just like, that's a lot of money. And I was just like, so I just Googled, what does a UPM do on set? First, I didn't even know what a UPM meant, when it means unit production manager.
Right.
And so I just Googled, what does a unit production manager do on set? And I just went into that job blindly, and every morning I just would look, what does a unit production manager do on set? And I would just do that. And by the end of that, they were instantly going into another film shoot in Dubai. And the director goes up to the second and first AD and says, what do we need to be able to accomplish this job in Dubai? Because we're leaving in like 3 weeks to go to Dubai. And they go, we need Joe as a UPM. And I'm just like...
And you just Googled that job.
Yeah, I Googled it, and I just did the things it said to do on set. Like, that's all I did. And they're just like, he did it. He was like one of the best UPMs we've ever... Because I was probably doing more than what people were used to.
Right.
And doing it well, because I was trying to prove a point, and I was very hungry, and I was really broke, and I needed that money. And then for them to say, like, the first and second AD to be like, we need Joe in order to accomplish this, you know, was like a huge compliment. And I didn't tell them that I didn't. Once I got to Dubai.
They don't got to know that.
Yeah. Well, once I got to Dubai and we were like halfway through, actually, no, when we were finished, you know, and I crushed it again as a UPM, I told them the story. And they thought that was the funniest thing. They were like, that's amazing. You just Googled your way through the job, you know?
And see, unless you're doing a job that needs you to be certified, like an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, most jobs you can just Google how, especially nowadays, Google how to do it.
Oh my God, there's a tutorial.
Because ultimately, you're just a problem solver.
Yeah.
You have to be a willing, capable problem solver, know how to talk to people, be aware of shit's going wrong, and be dependable.
Yeah.
If you do that, you can do a lot of jobs.
You can. And especially in the creative world.
Yeah.
It's just being able to be a creative problem solver.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, and then because of skating, I have connections all around the world. And so when we went to Dubai, I had connections in Dubai
through the skating
rollerblading.
community. Yeah.
And then after that Dubai one, we went to Korea. And because I rollerbladed, and they're like, how do you know everyone wherever we go? And I'm like, I don't. I'm actually just meeting them for the first time, but they know of me, and I'm telling them I'm coming to their city, and a lot of rollerbladers, for some reason, are in production.
Yes.
And so I would just say, I'd go to their town's message board, you know, their country or town's or city's message board, and be like, hey, it's GL Joe. I'm coming to, you know, any rollerbladers that, you know, in production, please. And they would just, their friends and stuff like that would see that and just start sending me, or maybe they would connect me to someone they're friends with that don't necessarily rollerblade. So we get to Korea and like,
but still have a friend of a friend.
Yeah.
The rollerblading community, unlike skateboarding or like basketball or other sports, there are so few rollerbladers in the kind that we do, like aggressive, like grinding and all that kind of stuff. It's like a secret society.
Yeah.
It's like a unspoken brotherhood around the world. You can pull up to any city. If you see a rollerblader, which is like for every 100 skateboarders, there's like one rollerblader.
Yeah.
But if he sees you,
and you have the same, and you know each other, like, oh, you got the same type of skates, like we're friends.
Oh yeah, I can crash at your house tonight.
Yeah,
but
no,
that's it's just happening.
Yeah. And I mean, that's how I grew up too. Is as soon as everyone was 16, we'd pile like 7 people into a 5-seater and just drive somewhere, go to the skate park, because this is before like one friend had a cell phone, you know, and there wasn't a smartphone; it was just a flip phone, and we would just get a MapQuest printout, go to the skate park. And then find other kids and then crash at their houses that night. We'd be friends, we'd meet that night, and then someone always had the house that you can, like, whose parents didn't care that you brought 7 random people into your house and crashed onto their basement floor. Like, and that was like from 16 to 20. That was my whole life, you know, for those years. And so I was used to it. So that skill transferred over to like traveling for bigger productions, and that, you know, I wasn't crashing on their basement floor, but reaching out, reaching out to strangers and telling them I'm coming to their town. And, you know, we would get, whether it'd be like a translator or someone just to show us for location scouts, because
Even
skaters are great location scouters. Kevin Dowling now is a professional award-winning location scouter, from him being a rollerblade filmer, having to search out spots. It's the same, because
people
like,
don't know,
technique.
Like, you see skating or any kind of sport, like at the X Games or whatever. No, we do street skating is what we do more than anything. Like parks and competitions are like select events. I mean, maybe we do skate parks more often now. It's like a thing
because it's training.
It's training, but street skating is the culture.
Yeah,
and there are no official skate spots. It's technically all illegal. We pull up to cities, to countries, and just look for shit.
Yep.
So if you spend your whole life looking for spots, you know the city, and that puts you in a position to be a location scout.
Yeah, it does. And where were we going with that?
You were getting a job. You Googled your way into a job, UPM job.
Yeah.
Right. And that how skating helped that. Right. It's like all these things that like skating has nothing to do with production, but it has everything to do with production.
Yeah.
In a
Well, that's
weird
what I
way.
tell
Yeah.
even I tell my kids this all the time. I'm like even the jobs I'm getting today are from like what's that 7 Degrees from Kevin
Yeah.
Bacon or whatever that game
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
I'm like they're all from skating. Every girlfriend I've ever had, even my current
Yeah.
partner, it's all from skating.
Yes.
All the jobs, all the connections, everything. Like you got me out of my mom's basement.
Me?
With Cashball and Rollerboy documentary.
shit.
Yeah, with Morocco. That's where I met Morocco. You put me in touch with Morocco to do this documentary about Cashball and Rollerboy.
Is that when they had the shirt that said
Yeah.
silence is golden, but my duct tape is silver?
Yeah. Yeah. This could be your life right here. Yeah.
That was like your first gig out at your mom's house?
Yeah, that
Wow,
was
no
out of the,
shit.
well, that's what got me. So that money got me to move out of my
Wow.
mom's and into an apartment.
Hey,
And
look at that.
But then they never paid me. I was like, it was enough money where I was just like, this is 6 months rent.
Yeah.
And then they never paid me.
so
Well,
what'd you do?
I was 3 months late on rent and had to find a job. Yeah.
That happens a lot in this industry. And not to say that it's okay or that you should be okay with people just not stiffing you, but if you want to be a professional creator and you're not prepared to be stiffed a couple times, then you're not going to make it. Right? Because the whole point of like if I won the lottery, I would still be creating. The first thing I would do, other than taking care of my
God.
family's health-wise, I'd buy equipment, I'd hire a team. I'd be doing 100 projects if I won the lottery.
If I won the lottery, I'd be creating even more.
Yes.
But on my terms.
Yes, same.
I would be creating bigger, more impactful projects.
Yes.
Because then I would have the direct funds to do it. Because like the thing is like with like now where I'm at, I don't have millions of dollars to then put into a project. So I have to go and find the money to do a project.
Right.
And then that comes with strings. And then they have ideas, rightfully. It's their money. They should have ideas on how they want things too. But then, you know, a lot of times then that vision gets lost in there. But, you know, that's just the way it works. And, you know, so if I won the lottery, I'd be making huge installations, not for cities, for middle America to help bridge that gap.
Oh, that's beautiful.
You know, like we all love art and they don't get to see it. They don't get to experience it. They only get to experience it when they go on a vacation to a big city.
Or they might associate that with like yuppies that hate them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I like one of my biggest visions is like to create a pop out semi truck, like where it folds out, or maybe like, you know, a bunch of semi trucks that interconnect once they get there. And there are these experiences that you go through and experience. But I want that for middle America. I want that to show up in like Kankakee, Illinois, or like in the middle of Idaho, or, you know, like in these places that are so far from cities that they've never even been to an art museum. And I would be I would have like a different, you know, installation artists that has a good, deep, impactful movement of bringing us together. And I'd want that. That's what I would do if I won the lottery, is I would create something like that.
Yeah.
And because I feel like that's our biggest divide, because everyone's like, oh, we're so divided. But then when you go out there, like when I was on tour, like, you know, we went to a lot of places where people are like, I've never seen a black person before in real life.
Like literally.
Yeah, and one of our good friends who would come out and party with us, Dan Allen, he was the tour photographer. You know, he was a very handsome man, so women would just come right up to him, but they would say that. And a lot of people would be like, that's racist. And I'm like, no, it wasn't racist. They were being genuine. I've never seen a black person in person before, and can I take a photo with you? Or like they would just start a conversation. And like when you get people to people, they, you know, we're all like, we all actually connect, you know, it's like
I just want to connect.
Yeah. And like, I've hung out with like extreme conservative people. They're fine. I've hung out with extreme liberal people. They're fine. Like, and they're actually like, a lot of their views are this, they want the same thing. Yeah. It's really funny because if you don't listen to both sides and you let all that like nonsense in and dictate how you actually feel, you know, you a lot of times, like my funniest one I realize is like, remember the Tea Party in the conservative movement? Like it was like during Obama.
I thought
no.
the
During
Boston Tea
Obama,
Party.
they had this conservative movement, the Tea Party, and at the same time, then the left had the Occupy Wall Street. Right. You know, and then the media pitted them against each other, but they wanted the same thing. which was they wanted corporate America to get out of the government. And I'm just like, they wanted the same thing, and those people got them to fight against each other.
Yeah, the theatrics of the presentation made them seem like they were at odds, when really they...
I'm just like, but if they would have just hung out with some beers, or not beers, some water, whatever they like to do, hung out around a fire, went camping together, they would have realized that they wanted the same thing.
That's why I like niche cultures like rollerblading, any extreme sport really, where you get together with a group of people that you can't control. Like, you can't control who's at the skate park.
No.
Like, if you sign up for like a basketball team, you kind of know, okay, it's my high school basketball team. There's some level of control there. At the skate park, who knows who's going to show up at any given day? So even when I was 12 years old, I had friends that were 18, 19, 20, white, black, Asian, Hispanic, whatever. And I was like, okay, my real world experience was so broad because of skating.
Yeah.
Owning a news station, whether it's CNN or a local blog, is no different than owning a Burger King, which is also no different than owning a prison in some places. There's private prisons. Like, if you own a Burger King, you want people to sell more burgers. Regardless if they're healthy or not, or if they should eat the burgers. You want to sell more burgers because that's your business. If you own a website, a news website, you want more clicks. And if it bleeds, it leads. Right? And most people, just like how Soulja Boy was making money from his haters. Right? If somebody owns a news station, they're like, we're low on money, we need more money. Let's tell a story that's maybe even partially true, but let's frame it in a way that gets a bunch of angry clicks so that we make more money, so that we sell more burgers. And then the overwhelming feeling is that, like, oh, those other people are so different than me. But then you meet them. I'm the same way. I have conservative friends, I have liberal friends, and I'm like, oh, it's just people. It just to identify with either one feels limiting.
I know, and it's funny you say, because of, like, I've always thought that way about religion. Like, when people ask me, "Oh, what religion are you?" I say I'm a theologian. I accept and study all religions, and that's like kind of like one of my, I guess, hobbies is reading about ancient religion and ancient civilizations, and how they rise and fall, and why they rise and fall, But then, I love everyone's creation stories. And then as I got deeper in, I started making connections and being like, they're talking about the same things. I won't go too far into it. But like, they're talking about the same things. And I always said, if you just read the Bible and only the Bible, well, that's like picking up, the secret of, what was it, the Chamber of Secrets from Harry Potter, and only reading that one. Well, there's 6 other books. You have the Torah before it. You have the Bible. You have the Quran, and then and you have the Hindu religion. Like, you need to be able to read all of them, because they're all talking about the same thing. That's the higher power. And no matter if you want to say, like, well, that religion believes in a bunch of gods, and I always thought, like, as I more study, I'm like, no, like, they call them different things. Like, in Catholicism, they call them saints, and then people start praying to saints and things like that. And then in Hindu, they called them gods, but there was always still that one higher power.
The top G.
The top G. Oh my God. And like, and so it's like, no, don't limit yourself to just one book. You have to read all the books in the series to understand, like, they're just telling the story of how the human experience from then to now. And that's it. And no one should be like, oh, well, that one's wrong, or that one's wrong, or that, the Book of Mormon's wrong. And it's like, no, like, why don't you read it and not read it as like an opposing, or I have to believe it. Just read it as that was those people's experiences living in America at that time and how they interpreted the higher power. And I always said that, like, religion actually is a regional experience of the higher power.
Religion is a regional experience of the higher power. And because of every region, like, if you lived in the mountains, you have a different interpretation of the higher power as if you lived on the flatlands by the river. So, you can't be like, oh, well, I want this one. Well, it's from the Middle East. That maybe might not make sense for Europe. And I always said that, like, Christianity, actually, in my opinion, Christianity is like a great downfall for Europeans because they lost their culture.
Like Europeans, they created their own culture from it, but like their ancient culture, they lost their ancient culture. And for like Hebrews people, that was their ancient culture. And they are still holding on to it. And look how tight knit they are as a community, still to this day. And they have a beautiful community. And like, you see these other places, and like same with Islam, like that was their culture, and that's their ancient culture, and they're still pertaining to that.
Yeah.
And here in America, like our culture, like I'm American. When I say I'm American, like I'm American by blood. Like I'm native and I'm from here, and then I have European and African ancestry mixed in with that native. And
did you do your DNA and me?
I'm Aztec. Like natively, I'm Aztec, Cherokee, and Theano.
Oh, I gotta take that test. I actually swabbed it, forgot to mail it in.
And even on the census, I write in other and I write in American, because I'm like I'm American. I'm from here, and then I'm also Spanish, Nigerian, and Irish.
Right.
And so it's like we don't actually even know our religion here from the ancients, because when Christianity came through, they saw the opposing beliefs as Satan worshiping and destroyed it all. And so like so now like these people are lost. My ancient people are lost of their culture. We don't even have it, even though we had a writing system. They destroyed it all. They always say like, oh, they didn't have a writing system. And then the further you dig, they did have a writing system, but all that evidence was
just
destroyed.
Banned.
It was banned, and it was destroyed.
Before the original cancel
they would burn it all. When they would send the
Library of Alexandria, whatever. Like
I'm talking when they would send, like the Spanish would send their explorers over here, and they would have the priests with them. They then would, when they would come, they would gather all that and burn it all and destroy it all. And like the only reason why we were able to decipher the Mayan and Aztec texts was because, I don't know if this is true, but this could be like a wives' tale. Yeah. But during World War II, when they were in Germany, the Germans had some of the remaining texts that would help them decipher the Mayan language.
No shit.
And so I think it was a Russian found it before in the library. Like they ran in, they knew that the Americans were going to, the Russians ran in and found all this ancient stuff and saved it. And then that allowed archaeologists to then decipher the Mayan and Aztec language. And then that's why we know so much more about them. But other than that, that was the only stuff that existed.
What is the newest religion? Was the Scientology the most recent one?
I don't know.
That was created there's videos of the guy who made it, right?
Yeah, that guy was an author.
Yeah.
It's funny because they always go, he was just an author. And then when you look, they all were just authors.
Yeah.
Like everyone who ever created a religion was an author.
Right.
Like the great prophet Muhammad, he was an author. Yes, he couldn't read or write. He had his ideas, and he had scribers write his ideas as he was getting the word, from the higher power. And, the same with Abraham when he left Ur to go, he was an author, and he had people write what he was interpreting from the higher power down. Like, they're all authors. Do you think
there'll be another one?
Yes, I do. And because of, it's funny, I just recently was looking at this, and I'm like, there used to be a prophet every 300 to 500 years. It's really weird. Like, this 300 to 500 is like this magic number. With how long a society, like how long a civilization lasts, and how long, it's always between 300 to 500 years. But yeah, if you look back, there's consistent prophets, and then all of a sudden they stop. And I don't think they stopped. I think they were just getting snuffed out. And
would you consider MLK a prophet?
No, but I would consider Fred Hampton a prophet. Was that Fred Hampton from Chicago, right? Yeah.
Why do you differentiate them?
Because Fred Hampton, by the time he was he was only 19. He was 21 when the president assassinated him.
Yeah.
And by the time he was 19, he had something called the Rainbow Coalition. Like, can you imagine this? A 19-year-old went out and united the racists, the Puerto Ricans, the Mexicans, the whites, the blacks, the poor whites and the poor blacks. He united them all together into one coalition, and they were all working together because all they cared about was having equal opportunity, education, and food and water and good clothing, and their neighborhoods to be safe.
And for those who want to see it, Judas and the Black Messiah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Great
and
movie.
I feel like he And I feel like that's why they killed him.
He was a prophet because he didn't just have. Well, okay, MLK was extremely important.
Yes, I'm not saying
he was a visionary and a great communicator, but you're saying Fred Hampton was a like community organizer and actually like.
I think that's what scared them was at 19 he accomplished what that only a prophet can accomplish at 19, and he brought all these, and he was creating real change, and he created real like threat to the powers that be. And I feel like he probably could have, if they allowed him to live, he would have went on to become some type of form, something of a prophet, you know?
Yes.
Maybe not a prophet, but someone important that could have changed the way our society
He was a visionary and an
now.
implementer.
Yeah.
A lot of people might have great ideas, but the scary part is that he was implementing them.
Yes. And they were positive.
From what I saw in that movie, it was like, yeah, he really did get the people together, and they got somebody close to him to kill him, and then that guy killed himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, and you know, and they do the same thing. Like the Prophet Muhammad's the only one to escape that. And it's because like like Jesus, they killed him. Like they're always they killed the prophets, but the difference was Prophet Muhammad was a warrior. And so he was able to protect himself. And you know, so
he just died of natural causes, or
I think so. I'm pretty sure he did, or he died of an illness. He got sick and then he died. Right. But he wasn't murdered, you know. And but that again because he was prepared, you know. He was a warrior first, and you know there's that. Do
you think people at the time thought of them that way?
Like, well, they did because of that's why he was able to garner up such a large army.
The people that he affected, yes.
Yeah.
But the people that weren't in the direct influence of a Fred Hampton, who heard about Fred Hampton, were there any positive news things about him, do you think? Like, do you think if you weren't directly touched by Fred Hampton, did they treat him like any other canceled person today? Where they're like, oh, that's a troublemaker over there. Don't listen to that guy.
Oh, today. Well, see, the thing is we probably won't know about him until 30. I didn't know about Fred Hampton until like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, no, even longer because we did actually remember when Haiti had that huge earthquake? We put together a concert to raise money for that, and we shot a whole video. But Fred Hampton's son, the one that was like when his father was murdered, and his wife was laying next to him, that was the son in the belly. We had a whole interview of him, and I didn't know. I kind of knew, but I didn't look into it. But it really wasn't until like 5 years ago that I really started looking into Fred Hampton. And I'm just like, and then I saw that movie, and I was like, wait. And then I watched the documentary. Like, I
gotta see the doc. I've seen the movie. I haven't seen the doc.
No, I mean the doc and the movie go hand in hand. They're telling you the same information pretty much. But then the doc is the real people telling you the story. Yeah. And then then I read a bunch, and I'm just like, this guy was on his way to becoming a prophet, not like Malcolm X or not like MLK, because he was doing it for different reasons. You know, like MLK was like, or Malcolm X was like a separatist. You know, he was just rightfully so was worried about his people. Same with MLK, but Fred Hampton was worried about all people. You know, he was worried about
he was a unifier. Yeah.
Yes, he was worried about first his people.
Yes,
but by the time he was 20, he was now a unifier and worried about all people, and that's what he was. And they didn't care about him until he got the freaking Confederate flag waving people to come and work with him. And that
must have been really scary. Yeah.
And then that's when they were like, "Oh shit!" Like he's unifying the poor together. You know, like in the KKK,
especially for real stuff. Yeah,
yeah, and the KKK was coming. You know, and they're putting down their nonsense and unifying with Fred Hampton. So it's crazy that, people like from the KKK and the people that fly the Confederate flag, they're born into this hatred of other people.
Right.
It's taught from birth.
Right.
And then for them to hear him speak, because he would go and show up to their communities, they'd throw shit at him and he would talk. And then once one listen, it spread and they would be all like, wait, this is what we're fighting for.
Yeah.
And like, wait, this guy has a point. And then and he wouldn't be like, I'm the leader. He'd be like, no, me and you were working equally together. And that's,
And that's an important distinction too, because being a leader isn't about saying, I'm the leader.
Yeah.
It's about saying, hey, do we all recognize this problem? Hey, everybody, let me get your attention. Do we all see this problem here?
Yeah.
Here's where I think it comes from, and here's where I think it might go to. Can we all get together to fix this problem? It's just that. It's really not even about you. Being a leader, you're really a servant. At the highest level, a leader and a boss are two different things, right? Now, granted, you can have bosses that are leaders, but the fact that he went into communities that were conditioned to hate him, and he found a way to say, hey, I'm not even going to argue with you about whether or not you hate me or why you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Let's pause that. Let's sidebar that one.
Yeah.
Let's focus on the problem at hand.
Yep.
And then you can hate me later.
And that was education.
Yes.
Poor water, clothing, like, why isn't the government helping us out, And
have you heard of Daryl Davis?
No, I haven't heard of Daryl Davis.
Maybe the name is right, Daryl Davis. He's this black jazz musician. He went on the Joe Rogan podcast who converted like 300 people out of the KKK.
Oh, didn't they make a movie about him?
Did they? They might have made a doc, but essentially the idea, the story goes, I'm summarizing a lot of it, is that he was playing at this bar that happened to be a Klan bar, and a guy came over and said, I never heard of a black guy play the piano like that. And he's like, well, we invented this style. He's like, and he's like, what are you talking about? And then they got into this whole conversation about it, and then he got this one guy to be friends with him just through the jazz conversation. And then eventually he collected like 300 KKK hoodies. Yeah. He has their Klan's hoods at his house because he befriended them.
Yeah, he just became friends with them.
Right? And I think the media always talks about how we're divided, but you're dividing us.
Yeah.
You say, we're divided. By the way, those other people are bad. We're divided. By the way, those other people. Like, anytime you say other people and we're divided, you're literally causing it.
Yeah. Oh, no, they cause it all the time. Because a lot of times people are like, right now, America's as racist as it's ever been. And I'm like,
no, it's not.
Wait, no, it's not.
We used to kill each other for this shit.
Yeah. And then also, even back then, like, this will hurt a lot of people's feelings, but like, America is the least racist country on this planet. I've traveled to many, many countries, and like when I travel to the country, I'm not just going there. I never go there for vacation. I go there for work, and I go there to explore. And so I'm working directly with the locals, and I'm learning their ways, and I'm documenting their ways and their experience in life. And everyone else has these. Is it Hajimistic? Hajime? Like, it means together? Yeah. Well, all their cultures, they all look the same, and their culture's the same in every other country you go to.
Yeah.
Minus UK recently. But, like, America is everything. It's a mix. It's an experiment. Like, America was an experiment to just, let's put everyone from around the world on this land and see what happens. And like, we created the internet, we went to the moon, or maybe not, but like, we went to space, and like, we
created entertainment, great art pieces.
Like, we created Hollywood, we created automobiles. So like, we all, because, and it's funny because whenever I hear like these like white separatists who are just like, oh, this no foreigners, no, I'm like, okay, well, where was it? Steve Jobs. Was he Syrian, right?
Was he? I didn't know.
Yeah, can you check? Is Steve Jobs Syrian? Like, I'm pretty sure he is. Like, he was Syrian. His family fled from the Middle East to here.
Huh.
And he changed the way we live. If his family didn't immigrate here, we wouldn't have the things we have.
Yes.
And if you start looking back at every inventor.
Originally from, was a Syrian Muslim.
Yeah, he's a Syrian. Yeah,
Steve Jobs was a Syrian Muslim?
Yes. And
how do we not know that?
I mean, I've known it forever, but yeah.
I've never heard anybody else mention that.
Yeah, really?
Was he an orphan too? Was he adopted?
The biological dad was Syrian Muslim, and then mother's Swiss German ancestry.
Yeah.
Wow.
And like, we wouldn't have had Apple if his dad didn't come here. And that goes with the automobile, that goes with NASA, that goes, like, every big invention we've ever had were from migrants coming here and working with the people here.
Yes.
Because of, that's like, to me, like, a swamp, you can't drink swamp water.
Right.
Because if it sits there, it grows stagnant and it festers. But you could drink a stream and you could drink a river because it's constantly moving, it's constantly changing, it's flowing. And, and that's why a lot of people are like against the migrants and asylum seekers coming in now. I'm like, bro, get them in, make them citizens, get them to work. They all want to work. Don't give them free money. Help them out just as much as we're helping each other out. But like, they want to work. Set them up so they could work, you know, because that's how it always has been in America.
Especially if we don't want to depend on other countries for manufacturing and that kind of stuff, right? Like if a world war does break out or whatever, or a hot one at least, right? We don't want to.
What are we going to do
we don't
if
want
we
to have
can't
the
get
supply
to China?
chain. Yeah.
What are we going to do if like all of a sudden there's a wall up of ships and we can't get those things here?
I also heard through the grapevine that maybe they're letting a lot of them come in without documenting them because they're going to then offer the documents in exchange for military service because we have low enrollment rates.
Oh my God. Yeah, we do have low
to be like, how about this?
And it's not just that we have low military rates. Generation Z can't pass boot camp. So now they're like, do we lower the bar of boot camp? But then if we lower the bar of boot camp, then that means we have weaker soldiers. And I'm talking like mentally, physically, they can't pass boot camp.
Yeah.
And you know, they think it's because of gaming. Like gaming is making them smarter, like quick in the brain.
They might be good drone operators.
Yes, but but because they spent their entire life gaming, they're physically weaker.
Yes.
And we're not like the old Americans where we were 6'3" and just like did physical labor all day, and our army was feared because we were made of muscle.
Yeah, that's what makes a Navy SEAL is they put them through the hardest fucking training possible.
My sister, she dated and married a lot of, because she's in the army, she's in the armed forces, and all her boyfriends have always been like Black Ops or Delta Force, and they would tell me the things that, like, they would parachute out in the middle of Alaska, and they'd have to put they would have a 10-pound boulder and a piece of rope, and would have to tie that to their back, and they have to then hike and with just a compass and a knife. That's it. That's all they had. They had a parachute out, and they had a compass and a knife, and a rock that they had to carry on their back.
I feel like this is going to be such a shitty comparison, but I feel like the kind of work that we do, we became like creative Navy SEALs.
Yeah.
Because we were thrown into big ideas with low budgets from the beginning.
Yeah.
Like the idea of, obviously, military service is a whole other level of contribution to society, but like being dropped off in Alaska with just a boulder and a compass and a knife and saying, figure it out. To me, the only comparison I could draw to my life is like saying, here's a project. Why don't you UPM a tour?
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Well, like when we did Build a Beast that first year.
Yeah, that ability to just say,
yeah, we all had to figure it out. I think I was the only one there that had any experience of how, and I had little experience.
Right.
Like I had throwing house parties and one tour didn't make me a know-it-all. I had one tour that was like ran by shoestrings. You know what I'm saying? So, and then we went in to throw Build a Beast, which changed the way dance, events are thrown to this day.
Yes.
And like, and we didn't know what the fuck we were doing. We had no idea. I remember staying up 56 straight hours, like no nap, and like in the middle of conversations, just dozing off.
I remember that those first couple years of Build a Beast were a stretch.
Yeah.
But it was funny because Michael Passos was on that too, right? He was on year one.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he came and did lighting. Yeah, he programmed lighting for us.
It's so dope to see our crew of creators knowing each other from like the indie skate video days, the low budget days, but now all of us are doing bigger shit. It's like, oh yeah, we worked on a little dance video back in the day, and now he's doing Chance's tour. Oh yeah, we did this. Now they're doing Kanye's thing. It's nice to see that our aspiring crew made it.
Yeah, well,
in our own ways.
And I think the reason why we're all, the older we get, the bigger jobs we're getting is because we're not quitting. Because like the longer you just stay in it, everyone just starts falling out, and then before you know it, you're the last one. You're the only one there that can do that skill. Like, because everyone else is like, oh, it's too hard. Like, I'm not getting work. You know, like there's been times where I've been almost evicted, or I didn't have a home to live in, and I would have to crash on a friend's couch for a couple months until I was able to save up money and then re-get another apartment. And that's all because I wouldn't compromise. It's like I could go do wedding videos and make $1,000, that day. But like I tried that. I tried to do wedding videos. I tried to do these other things, but then I'd get there and I would start editing, and I'm just like, I can't do this. And I would then just take that money and give it to someone else who can finish the edit. Because it's soul sucking and it's not what I wanted to do. I would rather be broke trying to find the next thing I was passionate about to get paid for than just getting a job. Because if I just got a job, and because like my problem is I did this once, I went and worked at an agency, and luckily I was laid off. And because I all of a sudden it paid really well and I got comfortable and I just stopped like creating for myself.
Yes.
I just stopped.
Something about having to hunt makes you such a different level of creator.
Yeah.
Because you have to survive. We all have to survive. And you might sacrifice things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like take a step down in lifestyle. But when you have to hunt, you're always alive.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, I better do an incredible job on this one and follow through on the logistics and the business relationships so I can get the next job.
Yeah.
It keeps you fucking on your toes.
Yes.
I felt the same way. I felt like for years. I think I did 6 months once I edited for Playboy TV. I was like
nice.
on the I was just in some studio in Burbank just editing their TV show, and it was cool. It helped pay the rent, but I was like, I'm not even here. I'm just a cog in the wheel.
Yeah, and
creatively,
and then also you're not allowed to be inventive in those scenarios.
I couldn't be like, I have an idea, guys. That wasn't even. They were like, no, just do it this way.
Yeah. It's like there was no way because they had a well-oiled machine. They knew what their viewers like. It had to look a certain way.
Yeah.
And if you try to stray from that, you're just wasting your time. You're wasting their time and your time, and then they get mad at you because
it's not that you're able to be independent; is that it sucks to be dependent.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's more of a marker for somebody being a success. It's like an entrepreneur is not somebody who can own a business, but it's somebody who hates having a job.
Yeah.
More so than having a business. Right? Because if you hate having a job and you have to survive, the only other option is to have a business. Doesn't matter if you're selling weed or if you're selling whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like but some people say, I want to be an entrepreneur, but they've had like a full-time job for like 10 years. It's like, well, an entrepreneur for me is more somebody who hates having a job than somebody who loves running a business.
Yeah. There's so many, it's funny you say that. Well, then you talk about selling weed is like, I don't even know anyone who didn't sell drugs. Like in some small form, you know what I'm saying?
Even if it's like, I have some leftover Adderalls from my prescription, take these so I can pay my phone bill.
Or
it's
even,
like something,
I know people who don't even do drugs who like, oh, my friend sells drugs. I'm going to buy them to then give them to my friends.
Right.
You know, like to sell them to my friends.
Yeah.
And it's so weird that like that black market of selling marijuana or mushrooms, like sustained people to then live and follow their dreams. There's been so many times.
Still does.
Yeah, and it's like
especially out here in LA. Wink, wink. Yeah, a lot of people out here have side mushroom businesses. Yeah.
And I just remember like when I first moved out, and then I didn't get that job, or well, I got the job that you sent me, the documentary about Cashball and Rollerboy. Right. But then it wasn't that they didn't pay me. It's actually a sad story of why they didn't pay me, and it's because they then took their drug money and then turned it clean and then became real estate, and they cleaned up and whoever the DEA, whoever was after them, put a sting on them, and they went in to fake buy a house from them, and on the side they kind of befriended them, and they're just like, hey, do you know where you can get some coke? And they're like, yeah. Wow. And then they hit him with conspiracy. And they got him that way. And then they went to jail and they couldn't finish paying me. And like,
so you can't even blame them for that too much.
Well, it's funny though, because then the DEA knocking that out then turned me into a drug dealer, because then I had no other way to pay my rent at the time. So then I had to sell weed and I had to sell mushrooms. And like,
that reminds me of The Wolf of Wall Street, where he's talking about his team. He's like, I got this person who sold tires and weed. Yeah. This person who sold this and weed. Yeah. And this person who sold anything he could get his hands on. Mostly weed.
Yeah. And like, I just think it's weird that wow, that was a quick 20 minutes. This shit goes
30 minutes, yeah. We're already at the 90-minute mark.
What the fuck?
That's what I'm telling you. These things go like 3 hours. Like we're 90 minutes in.
Oh my God.
Just so you know, this one only has 39 minutes.
Oh yeah, I have more cards on the side. Yeah, we'll refill them. Yeah.
So are we good?
Yes.
Okay. And so what I was saying was like, it's funny that the DEA took out. DEA?
The DA or the Drug Enforcement Agency. Yeah. But the DA, the district attorney.
No, DEA.
Okay, yeah.
It's funny that they took out a drug dealer, and then when they took him out, they created another one. I mean, I wasn't moving like them. I was just selling to my friends just to make rent.
Sure.
But like, I just think that was weird. Like, because they owed me money, and then I put me in a spot, and then some of my friends did move weight, and they were like, here, Joe, we'll help you out. This is how, here's a pound, we'll front it, sell it. You know, right. And then And like, it wasn't like I wanted, I only did that. Like
just enough to pay the bills.
Just enough to pay the bills so I could keep pursuing my passion.
Yeah, it's like a girl who strips just a couple times.
Exactly.
Like, let me go to
oh man, I've met
go to
so
Vegas
many
for a weekend, make it like $5,000 and come back. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I've met a girl who was, I befriended a girl who was a dominatrix and a prostitute, but she was from Inglewood. So she didn't come from wealth, and she wanted to be a lawyer. And she got in. She was smart enough to get into lawyer school, but that's how she paid her way through law school. And like,
that's amazing.
But she enjoyed it.
Somebody somewhere is repped by a lawyer who also on the side is a dominatrix.
He was a dominatrix. Yeah,
that's hilarious.
Yeah, and you know, and it's just like, but in my opinion, that's the American way. If you look at every, like in the late 1800s to early 1900s, every industrialist started off shady.
Yes, even the Kennedys, during the Prohibition era, they were selling.
That's how they got their. That's how they got their fortune, and then when it flipped, they owned it, and then they were able to make it legal.
Yes,
and it's just like a lot of these weed guys, they were doing it illegally, and then when it flipped, the smart ones were able to make it legal.
Yes,
and you know, and then they're profiting off.
Down, Brazzy.
Hello.
Oh, I told you he's gonna come in for the kiss. Oh yeah. Okay. Good boy, Brazzy. Down. Yeah,
Sit.
And you know, it's interesting because okay, Brazzy, leave it. You know, because like if somebody is Italian and they say, oh yeah, my grandpa, he used to be in the mob. You know, it almost sounds kind of sexy.
Yeah.
Right. It's like my grandpa was in the mob and now he owns a car dealership or something. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, that's cool. You know, he was a suit. But you say, oh yeah, my dad used to sell crack.
That doesn't sound exciting. Right. Or my dad was a gangbanger. That doesn't sound. But it's the same thing.
Yes.
When you say my dad was in the mob, they were selling drugs, people, stolen goods.
Yes.
Like that's what the mob did.
Yes.
And it's even worse than like my dad was a gangbanger who sold weed. You know.
Yes, especially and you watch a show like Narcos and you see how many people died for the war on drugs, and I've calmed down a lot now. Now I really just smoke weed and do edibles, but especially in my days where I would party a lot, it's never hard to find drugs literally anywhere.
No.
Anywhere. You could be like at a real estate conference with the CEOs of companies that are all like suit and tie, and half of them have like LSD in their pocket. Oh, well, and you're just like, oh, okay.
When I travel and work abroad, even in countries that have these insane laws, the first thing our handlers say is, do you guys want any weed?
Do you want alcohol? Death penalty to smoke weed. Yeah. By the way, do you want some?
Do you want some? Like I can get you, but like they'll be like, but you got to smoke it at my house because then it's fine.
Yeah.
But you don't ever smoke it out in public. You just smoke it at my house, and I'm a citizen, so it's fine for me. You know, it's like they're gonna look the other way.
That's so trippy. And it's at any point in time, the government can decide what is and isn't legal, right? Yeah. Like Cat Williams has a joke that you take 10 Advils, you die.
Yeah.
Right? But nobody's ever died from weed. He's like, you might have thought he was dead. He ain't dead.
Come back.
Shout out to Cat. What an interesting time to be alive. As a creator, how do you feel about capitalism? And are you optimistic? This is like a weird question because I'm a capitalist, but I'm also an artist. Like I'm more socialist with my family. Like I'll give handouts to my sister. Mm-hmm. Right? But in the world, I like the idea of capitalism in that I get rewarded for my effort.
Yeah.
If I want more rewards, I need more effort.
What I think is beautiful with America, and I say this to people, it's like, hey, you got to get out of that mentality. You know, that I always, like when we were poor, my daughter would be like, are we poor? And I'd be like, no, because poor is a mindset. And like, we're not going to, this isn't how we're going to live forever. No, I have a plan and we're going to get there. Mm-hmm. And like, when I started out, like when I first moved to LA, I lived in a studio and her bedroom was in a closet, you know, and then now we live in a 3,000 square foot, like, you know, giant apartment, and she, you know, has her own room and shit like that. And like, you know, it's like she saw, it was cool because she got to see the rise. She got to live through like,
that's going to give her such a sense of appreciation.
Yeah.
Of growing up.
Doesn't though.
No, it doesn't.
I always had the reminder, remember when we were in the basement? Now look who we are. And she's like, it's because I live in the West Loop now, and like,
and all their friends are richer.
Yeah. And it's like I'll give her $40 to go out with her friends for the day, but other parents will give their kid $300 to go out for the day, and I'm like, what are they gonna? But they spend it. they spend that $300 every day they go out, and I'm like, that's insane. I would even if I had $1 million, I wouldn't give my child $300 unless they were like going on vacation.
Right.
Here's $500 for the entire vacation.
Right.
Learn to spend accordingly.
Yeah, get a jet ski, this and that, whatever.
But not $300 to just walk around the West Loop and buy snacks. You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's wild.
Yeah. And so she's still like, no, Dad, you need to work more. And I'm like, no, because if I work more, then I can't take you to practice. And you like when I'm at your wrestling meets or your volleyball, games,
So she's getting influenced by her rich friends.
Yeah. And she's like, no, I want more, and it's just funny. But now she's like, all right, well, then I need to be an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And she's like, okay. And I built her out a nail salon in her house, and she has her friends come over.
I saw you share the photo of the nails she did recently. Yeah, yeah. It was like really well done, really detailed. And
it's funny because because right now she just started taking interest in shooting video and editing, and she's just like, this is really hard. I'm like, yeah, remember when you first started out with nails and they were disgusting looking? Yeah. And now you have after 4 years of doing it, you have beautiful nails. Yes. And you still need more work on those nails.
Yes.
Because of those beautiful nails she's making take her 8 hours. Where if you were to go to a tech, it would take them 2 hours.
Right.
So she knows that. She knows she needs to figure out how to get for it to be worth her while when her friends come. They only pay her like between $20 and $40, her friends from school. But for it to be worth it, she needs to get it down to 2 hours.
Yeah, so then it's $20 an hour instead of $20 for 8 hours. And you're like, wow, yeah.
But she's still learning, and it's fine.
Well, it's great that you're teaching her that, because to me, that's the fundamental of my life, is just being a problem solver, right? And even if video making went away, I'd find something else to solve problems. If you drop me off in a village, and in this village we all need to do this weird thing, I'm like, that's what you guys need help with? I guess I'll do it. Like, you just show up and you help. Yeah. And the better you get at helping, and the harder problem you solve, the more money you make.
Yeah.
It really just is that.
Yeah.
Right? And like they said, you don't get paid for the 30 minutes of work. You get paid for the years that led to it.
Yeah.
Right?
And I always have to tell that to when people are paying for renders.
Yeah.
I have a fantastic render guy team. It's Zach.
Explain what you mean by render.
So like when you come up with a concept, like more so for in the staging area, like live concerts and live events, you come up with a concept, and at first it's just like a quick pencil sketch,
right?
And maybe some photos or AI renders or AI images that you created just to show them. And if they're like, I like this, then the next step is now you need to digitally create this, like CGI, make this.
A preview of what the stage will look like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a really good team, Zach and Adrian, and they're able to take those and turn them into photorealistic renders like overnight, and it's like, it's insane. Where was I going with this though?
Problem solving. You have to be a great problem solver, and you're talking about charging for the years.
Oh yeah, for the years.
Yes.
And I'll be like, well, these renders are between $3,000 and $5,000, and they're like, but they only took you a day, and I'm like, no. In order for these guys to be able to get you photorealistic renders in overnight, when you finally hit me up at 10 p.m. and then you have them at like 7 a.m, like that first off took them a shit ton of money on their gear to be able to even get that out. And then decades of experience.
Right.
And like, so you're paying for that. You're paying for their gear.
Yes.
And then you're paying for all the knowledge that it got. Like we could go to a cheaper guy.
Yes.
Like if you don't want to pay $3,000 to $5,000.
And I think that's the difference between cost, price, and value.
Yeah.
Some things have a lot of value, not a lot of cost. Mm-hmm. Right? Cost is how much it costs to the person making it.
Yes.
Right? Like at this point, they've already bought the gear. Mm-hmm. So technically speaking, it cost them nothing in this moment.
Yes.
The price and the value, they might charge $3,000 or $5,000 because if you were to have a shitty drawing that fucks up the stage, that fucks up the show, you might lose $100,000. Or you might lose $1 million.
It doesn't even sell the idea to the client.
Right.
And so the client never even picks it up.
Right.
You know how many times I've like when I really started noticing is like when we got the Ye and Ty Dolla $ign Vultures listening party in Chicago.
How did that happen?
Oh, that was crazy. That was insane. So like at the beginning of the year, I was in a really, really weird place because at the end of the year, we just got signed on to do like 3 projects in Saudi, between Saudi and Dubai. And I was just like, I've worked over there a lot of the past 2 years. We do these large scale installations. So it's like, I'm also an art director for this huge international artist. Her name's Sarah Shaquille.
Nice.
And like, I see her vision. Me and her, we connect very well. And when she talks to me, I already know what she wants.
Artist Relations is like when they have a pop-up event, and for this one weekend or whatever, then you transform this whole ballroom into a thing. And you come up with the idea and the execution.
Well, she comes up, because I'm her art director.
Okay.
So she's the artist, and then I work under her. And she'll come up with the idea, and then like chicken scratch draw something.
Right.
Or create like a mood board. And then I get the dimensions of the space and then take her idea and fit it into the space.
You make it literally happen.
Yes. Yeah. How we enter, how you experience it, like, and I take all, and then, then we me and her, we work back and forth. Like, Joe, what if we do this? And I'm like, yes. And now here it's this, we work back and forth and until it's, what it is. And so we had locked in like these huge jobs in Dubai and Saudi Arabia, and like that 2 months of working was like 7 months of pay. And I was like,
that was going to be the lick for the year.
I was like, shit, this is it. Like, and then the war started and all those jobs got canceled or started getting rocky. And one of them didn't fully cancel all the way, but they weren't communicating. And then all of a sudden the United States is shooting at Yemen, and Yemen's shooting at the United States, and Saudi Arabia is like, we're currently at war with Yemen, and like, but it's like a truce right now, and they're right below us. So all of these like projects started falling apart.
It didn't feel right to throw like a show in the middle of a war.
Yes. Well, Dubai, that was actually the reason for Dubai canceling. It was like, we don't feel that it's appropriate to throw a celebration at the beginning of this war, because we have a lot of Palestinians and a lot of Jewish people that live in Dubai.
Right.
And we just don't think it's right. Security reasons and for just emotional reasons.
Yeah.
Out of respect for everything that's going on. And the same with Saudi. They weren't sure. They wanted to invest $1 million into something that maybe people aren't coming to right now, because this is an international event that they're expecting the whole world to go.
It would feel tone deaf.
It would feel tone deaf. And it would seem, and they cared, and and they were worried about this, the people over there experiencing the war. And it's just down the street from Saudi. It's not that far. And so we all lost a lot of that work. And
so you're expecting to make a bunch of money.
Yeah, and we had already been working on it.
Oh, so you put in a lot of pre-production work.
Yeah, we were already...
You were expecting to get paid a bunch.
We were doing preliminary renders and figuring out logistics, and like, I'm already hitting up fabricators, in Dubai and Saudi Arabia, and like, the ball's moving already, and then it didn't happen, and like, I went through Christmas thinking it was going to happen, and then it didn't happen, and I was like, oh shit, like, that money's not there anymore. The work isn't there, and I didn't have anything. And I hit up my friend Chris, who's been a big mentor for me in like the live filming
Chris
world.
Andrews.
Yeah, Chris Andrews from Stop Time.
Stop Time.
Yeah. And he luckily he's a very compassionate person, and he threw me a bunch of editing work. It was just enough to
He's really good like that. He did it for me back in the day too. Yeah. Like, Chris is a guy that just looks out for you.
He even says like, I'll give you a loan. I was like, no, I don't want a loan. Like, just give me some work. Yeah. And so I like banged out these edits during Christmas just to, have some money, but it still wasn't enough, and I like, and it was getting to that end where, I'm like, oh shit, like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I need to do something. Like, I need to do something life-changing. So if you know me, I don't have a reel. I don't have a resume. I've just gone from job to job. Do a good job, and you'll move from job to job.
Right, referrals and recommendations.
Yeah, but now is at that point where it's Christmas. No, there's no work. There's in our industry, it's dead from Thanksgiving to February.
Yeah.
So there's 3 months where there's no work, and you're supposed to. And luckily, my past career, for some reason, these big jobs with Sarah Shaquille happened during that 3 months. They always
so they were clutch.
And for the past 3 years, they've always happened between that 3-month lull. And so I got used to that. And then we had this other job on the line. So I didn't have anything really saved up for this to happen. And like, I remember, so I got all my work together. I was like, all right, I'm going to make a fucking resume, and I'm going to like start. I have a long list of clients that I could just start hitting up, and even if it's not for right now, Chris hooked me up with these editing jobs. Like, this will let me survive, but I need to start stacking for the next month.
Right.
And so I got all my work in one file, like pictures of all my work, and I made it was like 5 p.m. I told Anna, I go, hey, I need to go into my office. I can't be interrupted. Like, I got to really work hard. So make sure none of the kids come in. No one interrupt me. I made my coffee. It was like 6 p.m. on a Friday night, and I sat down. I got halfway through my coffee, and then I get a call from my friend Perry, and he's a production manager for like all these festivals. And he just goes, Joe, what are you doing next Friday? And I'm like, nothing. Why? And he is just like, there might be a Vultures listening party at United Center. We need you to do the IMAG work. And like, well, let me rewind a little bit before that, because the night before, I was feeling very stressed out. And I don't like to get high when I'm...
the night before the show or the night before
No,
the
before
call?
night I got that call.
Okay.
On Thursday. This is like, I feel very important. Is like, that Thursday... whenever I'm in those situations, I do not like to smoke, because then my anxiety becomes crippling, and I'm thinking.
You mean when
like,
you're in like a personal catastrophe kind of situation, or like a shitty situation?
Yes, I only like to smoke when
things are great.
When things are great.
Yeah,
If they are
when
not
you're in
great,
the flow already. Yeah,
yes.
same. I want to
Oh
deal
my
with the
God.
problem sober and then celebrate.
And it's like
later.
it's almost easier for me to forget about the problem when I'm sober. But as soon as I get high, it's right here in front of my face. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, and it's weird. I accidentally got high. You know, the pen got passed to me. I hit it, and then, but then I hit it way too hard. And everyone was sleeping, and all of a sudden, I started having a panic attack, and I was like, no. Let's turn this into a positive. And so I shut my eyes, and I don't know if you ever DMT tripped before, but I teleported through that DMT portal while only high on weed, because I was like having an anxiety attack. And I was really, 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 really high. And I teleported, and like I was there, like in front of whether it was the creator or one of the angels or watchers or whatever you want to call it. They were there in front of me. I could feel it, and I was just like meditating on that, just being like, I want to keep creating. I want to keep doing good. You know, like I want to keep creating for people. And like I was like, I need some light. Like, I need some help. I need, like, please, like, put the feelers up, touch people's head to remember me. Something like that. You know, like, and I've done that throughout my life where, like, when I was really younger, I would like, go to sleep panicking, and then I would wake up, there'd be a job in my email. And that same shit happened. But this time I went deep. And, like, I felt, it was like an out of body experience.
Yeah.
And then so now that Friday, I sit down, drink my coffee. I'm gonna make a deck for myself.
And you don't even know what it's for. You're just like, I'm gonna
make a deck, and I'm just gonna send it
work.
to all these people I've worked with in the past to be like, remember me, you know, hire me. And I get the call from Perry, and he's just like, can you do the IMAG? Which IMAG is image magnification. So when you're at a festival, there's those 2 screens on the side.
Right.
And so it's like for the people all the way in the back that can see what's happening on stage.
Right.
And in the summer, I'll do a few festivals with Chris. And we do mainly Riot Fest and Summer Smash. And it's become like a side passion. To me, I feel like it's a paid vacation doing IMAG, because I'm watching. I get to film or mix my favorite bands and hip hop groups. And so like I don't even feel like I'm doing work when I do that shit.
Yeah.
And so Perry calls me. He's like, I put together an IMAG team for Kanye's listening party. Right. And that was the first one. It was going to be at United Center. And I was just like, and it's always been my dream to work for Kanye. Yes. And like, I remember when I first moved here, I had this dream that I was eating a hot dog, and then ketchup fell on my shirt, and I was at this like backyard like party, and then I bumped into Kanye. And then like in that dream, he like pointed out the ketchup on my shirt, and I was like, "Oh, Kanye, what's up? I'm Joe. I did this music video, Black Magazine." He was like, "Oh yeah, I know of you." And that was like, and then I woke up, and I thought I was gonna, because I had that dream when I first moved here. I thought I was gonna work with him or do something with him, but it never happened. And then now it's like, oh, it's that time, and they're like, "We need you to put numbers together for the IMAG team," and then it turned into live stream, and then we get on a creative call. And I have this thing where I'll go in on a set as a PA. I'll get hired as a PA. Right. And then I leave as a producer. Yes. I do it all the time. And I always tell people, I'm like, yo, if you don't have anything going on, take a PA job. Because one, if you're a producer or a UPM, going in as a PA, you're going to meet DPs, you're going to meet gaffers, you're going to meet production, you're going to meet all these people because that's what a UPM and producer does. They're the person who knows people.
Yes.
And so and there was actually on a Build a Beast event where I met a PA who was actually a showrunner for Hulu, and that's why he was there, was to meet people like me and you and other people on this thing, because he was just like, my family's out of town right now. He had kids and they're off on something. I don't have any work right now. Why don't I just make $400 today?
Yeah.
You know, and came in and during his day off, he was writing a script for his pitches, you know, and he's the one who taught me. And I was like, oh, so I would
very
do
valuable to be a production assistant.
Yeah.
You get the connections, you get to show up. And if you're that valuable, if you are a producer who's working as a PA, give producer value.
Yes. And
they'll bump you up.
Yeah. Cause I'll go into a job and be like, oh, they don't have an art director, or they don't have, a set dresser, or they don't have a second AD or a first AD. And I can see the holes because I know how a production's supposed to run.
Right.
And then I fill those holes. And then before you know it, I'll leave with producer pay. Like it's multiple times I do that.
Got to fill those holes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Airtight.
Yes.
And so
so we get all these things. So he calls you for the Vultures.
Yeah. And so we finally get on the first call with Kanye's creative director, Oz, who's amazing. He has great vision and fully support. They might not work all the way in a live setting, but our goal is to make them work in a live setting. He has these great, he wants to create what he's doing with these Vulture pieces. They're more like museum pieces. They're something you would see as a performance art.
Yes.
And that's how he wanted them to come off.
They're listening parties that are more than listening parties, but they're less than a concert, but they're an art piece.
Yes.
Because when DJs perform, they're just playing, hit and play, and just doing this shit all day.
Yeah, yeah. And that's why it's a static light. There's no light changes in the listening. It's because of it's a performance. Not a musical performance. It's an art piece. And he doesn't come from a live background. He comes from a very art heavy and music video background. And so when he got on that call, and it's funny because I've been working with Perry and Chris now for 10 years. And even when I started working with them, I was already doing creative direction for live and stuff like that. And I'm always like, hey guys, we created for the Grammys. And they're like, yeah. And I always be like, let me design something for Riot Fest, or let me design something for Summer Smash. And they're just like, yeah, just do the IMAG. You're good at the IMAG. Do the IMAG. And I'm like, but this is doing the IMAG is fun. That's not my real job.
Yeah.
And then so it was my chance. And then as soon as he started his creative director's like, I need this, I need that, I need that, I need this. They didn't have the answers to them, and I did. And he's like, oh, you need renders? I got that. Oh, you need this? I got that. Oh, and then all of a sudden,
why does the IMAG guy have all these answers?
Well, he didn't know who we were.
Right.
And so we were just voices. This is our first time talking to him. So he didn't know who was what, when was where. We were just all a team trying to make this shit happen.
Right.
Me, Perry, and Chris. And so then and then Chris starts chiming in. Oh yeah, he's picking up what I'm putting down. So then he chimes in too. And before you know it, we're producing the entire thing. And we're not just the IMAG team. We're producing it from the stage design to, we didn't come, those are Aus's ideas, but we helped facilitate his ideas come to life. We produced those ideas for him. And the way he wanted it shot, I understood it instantly because of my film background. Chris didn't get it because he's been IMAG and Live Festival his whole life. He wanted specific cameras to have a specific look and first thing he says, because Chris goes, we got great shooters. And then he's like, no, I don't want shooters. I want DPs and cinematographers at every camera.
People that are actual solo cinematographers but working together as a team.
Yes. And so I put together Chicago's best DPs and cinematographers that were available, and he wanted to shoot on RELFs, which are not live cameras. They're actually very difficult to use for a live stream, but they produce an image that you're not going to get out of a fucking live camera. Right.
These are movie cameras for stage, which I think, which is funny because most concerts do have a big budget. So why aren't they all shot on at least Alexa Minis?
Well, because it's hard. It's hard. They're heavy.
Yeah. They don't have the servo focus.
Well, okay, put it this way,
stay.
A camera to shoot a live event rental is like $300.
Right.
And RELF is $2,000.
Right.
A body. Just for the body. Not even the AKS. AKS is all kinds of stuff. Which means like the handle, like all the different things that, because when you get the camera body, it's just a square.
Right.
It doesn't have a lens on it, doesn't have an eyepiece. And so you need to get the AKS, and that's another $300 to $500 of rentals to build around it. Then you have your lenses, and your lenses that we decided to get were like $1,000 a day rental. Right. Meaning they were $80,000 lenses.
Yeah.
And so,
which I do appreciate the intention there of shooting a concert in a more cinematic approach. It makes it difficult logistically, but creatively, I understand the desire for it.
Yeah, and it looks great. And they, I got a lot of pushback on, the production, like our production side. Yeah. I was like, guys, and then once they saw it though, they're like, we want this for Summer Smash. I'm like, you can't have this for Summer Smash. We do something similar, but like you got, like they got, we had 12 Alexa LF bodies. That's $24,000 just on body rentals. Wow. Like I had a $60,000 just camera rental for that one day, you know, to have them fully fitted. And,
so you guys were hired for iMag originally. Yeah. And then on the first call, he realizes that you have all kinds of resources. Yes. Which is why it's good for everybody watching this to have multiple creative things that you do. Because even if you're hired for a job in this one capacity, the fact that you know these other things can move you up in that job. Yes.
And before you know it, then now we're producing the Vultures, like fully producing the Vultures listening party. And, Oz was like, I need renders tonight. Call up Zach and Adrian. Boom. We were all four of us on, the text thread. And Austin's doing all this while he's directing the Super Bowl commercials, while he's directing the Pods commercials, while he's directing that wet t-shirt. They also doing the Vultures video that same week that like the listening part
they're working on. Yeah.
Yeah. And like he's doing all that. And like, so it's hard to get the communication because he's so busy. Yeah. And so it's like literally thumbs up, and we got him on the phone twice for like 5 minutes, on that whole week. And like,
that speaks to your expertise to be able to take that 5-minute call and then translate it to a whole show.
Yeah. And like I got the call on Friday. The job was, it was Monday night. We were all actually on that first creative call with Oz. And then we weren't sure if it was happening or not. He didn't even know.
The Monday of the concert.
No. Monday. So Thursday's the concert. Monday's the day.
Okay.
And we don't know. No one knows if this is happening or not.
That's three days before the actual show.
Yeah, and like we're talking like we have to get gear shipped from out of state. Like Chicago doesn't have
that many
12 LF bodies, Yeah. And luckily, my friend Dylan from PRG. He hooked it up and was able to fly them all in overnight, and like made it happen, get us all the projectors that we needed that weren't here, but where was it going with that shit? So that Monday night when we're on the call, all of a sudden, our phones start ding, 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 because Kanye announced it was happening. That's how that's how everyone found out.
So you guys were already on the call when it was a maybe.
It was a maybe.
So you're already prepping the whole team for a maybe concert that's 3 days away.
Yeah.
And then Kanye posts it's happening.
On his Instagram saying it's happening. And we're like, well, it's happening. And then that's when he's like, we need to get renders then right now. Called them up. We stayed up till like 4 a.m, made the renders. They were beautiful. And then from there just started, chipping away. So then we woke up Tuesday morning. So I had Tuesday, Wednesday, 2 days to make this happen for Thursday.
Wow.
And it was a big production. It was huge. Yeah.
So to continue this Vulture story, and I know you have more to share, but I want to point out the fact that when you're a top-level creator, you can't expect everybody else to make the job comfortable for you. Obviously, you don't want somebody abusing you or mistreating you, but saying, hey, get everything ready for a concert that may or may not happen in 4 days, and you better do a good job, and you're going to get minimal help, right? Yeah. That's a creative Navy SEAL. That's like drop you off in the desert with a knife and a compass. Figure it out, right? And I think in this generation, we're all about creating such supportive environments, but that doesn't create an amazing person. An amazing person does it despite having a supportive, not having one, right? So now it's Tuesday. The Vulture show's on Thursday.
Yeah.
What is it? What are you
No,
literally doing? Are you at a United Center, like
No.
loading shit in?
Well, no. So like, I'm hiring everyone. We still haven't, because like Oz wanted to make sure, because you know, he's used to working in LA, and you get the top people. He's like the last people who shot the Hoover benefit concert were like the people who shot Star Wars.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, well, we don't have that here in Chicago, and I'm not allowed to fly anyone in.
Right.
You know, because of budget constraints. Or else, yes, we would just fly in a bunch of the best people that ever existed in the world to do this job. But like, and he was pushing like, I want these certain people, and I'm like, we can't afford them with the budget we have. But I'm telling you, we've got great talent here in Chicago to do the job.
Yes.
And so like, you know, I already, like by Friday, I already had like, well, we had our IMAG team, but we had to let 90% of them go. Because they didn't want IMAG, you know, and there's an argument.
Cinematographers,
yeah, there was an argument like on, you know, our production side, like, what? No, our guys are great. I'm like, trust me, guys, like, they're not. You know, I'm like, they're good for IMAG, but that's not what we're doing here. We're shooting cinema, and they've never even worked with these cameras. We need people familiar with these cameras. These cameras weigh like 100 pounds.
Yes.
Like you need people who know how to use these beasts of machines. And, you know, and then also, like, you can't just, like, if you shoot a shot and I shoot a shot, it's going to be different and good for different reasons.
Yes.
They're not going to look the same. We're going to be sitting at the same sunset, and they're going to be two different looks.
Right.
And they're good for their own different reasons. And, like, you know, I tried to explain that so many times, and they just couldn't get it. I'm just like, drop it. You know, like, I have this. This is the world I come from. Yeah. Like I know this world, and so you know they let me run with it, and I was able to put together a really good team.
You got Erdem in there, right?
Yeah, I did get Erdem.
Shout out to Erdem.
Yeah, and thanks to him, he's the one that like opened the door. Oz was, you know, like, oh, I'm like, no, he shot a bunch of Beyonce music videos. He shot that one really important Weekend music video. Yeah. And then he was like, okay, you do have talent in Chicago that can do this. Because he's never worked in Chicago. He's from LA. Yeah. He's from LA. Yeah. He's worked in LA. Well, I don't know if he's from LA, but all I know is he's always worked in LA where the talent, you throw a rock and you're hitting really good talent. Yeah. And so, like, you know, he doesn't know the Chicago market. And he doesn't realize that half of LA is filled with Chicago people.
Right, LA just has the best people from other places. Yes. It's just that here, you could run into the DP of, like, Stars Born, like at Starbucks or something. Yes. And you're like, oh, you should work on my project. But in Chicago, you got to really know them and find them. And
and so, you know, and I was already pre-hitting everyone up and letting them know, no kill fees. Like, this is a huge maybe job, because we all know how Kanye works. Mm-hmm. He could say it's happening, and then the night before, if production isn't the way he wants it, rightfully so, he'll say it's not happening. Yeah. Because if his vision isn't going to happen, then why do it? And so, you know, I pre-emphasize that with every single person on the job, even the rental house. Mm-hmm. I'm like, hey, you can start flying this stuff out here now, but it doesn't mean it's happening, and we don't want to be charged for that. And they were down. They were like, we get it. Everyone is. And like, I was like, I told them, you know, because originally I keep it on the DL, and I go, no, I have to tell people who's this for, because then as soon as I tell them who it's for, they're going to understand. Yeah. That this may or may not happen. And they're like, you're right. Actually, we're going to tell everyone that is who this is for, because you're right. And as soon as we said, this is a Kanye project, so this may or may not happen. And everyone knew. Got it. Understand.
But they were down to do it. They understood that he's such an artist that he might, for some whatever reason, just...
Yeah, if it's not turning out the way he wants it, he might pull it, you know, and because he's a true artist. Yes. And yeah, so we put that team together, and like... It was nuts. And then I got caught wind on Wednesday night that there was a New York one. And I was like, and I was trying to get in on that New York one. I was like, let me in. I want to. They're just like, no, concentrate on the Chicago show. Yeah. Like, I got other people, producers in New York working on this. And so, you know, I'm working the Chicago one. And then about 5 p.m., Perry comes up to me. He's like, can you fly to New York tomorrow and produce that one? Wow. And I was just like... He's like, look to see the first flight out in the morning, go. And so
the Ye show was in Chicago on a Thursday. Yeah. Which didn't get confirmed for 3 days before. And then the morning after, there's like, fly out to New York now for a show that's happening 24 hours.
Yes. Less than 24 hours.
That's how this shit works. You really, to make it in this business, you have to be like a creative Navy SEAL. You have to be ready to just make it happen no matter what.
And, you know, I showed up to New York, and they're just like, take whatever was good from Chicago make sure that happens again, and everything that was bad, make sure it doesn't happen again.
Smart.
And, and so I went out there and we did it. And I mean, I was actually I thought we were going to have like great shooters. They weren't as good as the Chicago guys.
The Chicago framing was better on the
so like on the Chicago one, our shooters were better, like the switching was better, but then the sound was really bad on the Chicago show, and the coloring was really bad on the Chicago show.
The color looked fine. The sound output was bad for us.
Yes.
I don't know how it was in person, but the output was fucked.
And then in New York we fixed those things, but then the shooters weren't as good. They were actually kind of like terrible. Like I was like, what the fuck? I wish I would have been a part of this because I know great DPs in New York.
Yeah.
I know the guys, and I'm just like, and what was crazy is, so we had 12 cameras, and we only had 5 ACs, first ACs, and they're the ones who support the camera, who pull focus and like, battery swaps, all that stuff. And then I get to New York, and they have 10 shooters or 10 DPs. And then they have 10 ACs, and then they have 10 PAs for every. So they were well equipped. And what's crazy is they were an hour and a half finishing setting up. And my team, who only had 5 ACs, we were ready to go when we said we were going to be ready to go. I mean, luckily the show was running late. Like there was other problems, But like if they weren't, then that camera team would have been an hour and a half late to finish setting up.
It goes to show that having a bigger budget doesn't always make a better project.
God, I found out how much money they spent on their freaking budget compared to ours was like tiny.
Yeah, it was like almost like double the budget, right?
Oh, it was a triple. And then I got wind later on when I handed in my budget to the Ye team, they looked at it and they're like, this stuff should cost more. Do they know what they're doing? And they asked for a line item, not to check our numbers, but to check to make sure we had everything to make a live stream happen.
Now, do you think that's because things are just more expensive in New York, or because in Chicago people are more talented for a lower budget, or what do you think?
Well, it's both. It's both. And everyone I hired were my friends. That rate didn't change. That it was the rental rates. And like I wanted the same. I was about to get a dolly for Chicago, but they were just like, Joe, even though it was only like $1,200 more.
Yeah.
They were just like, we're past our budget.
Yeah.
Like you can't add any more on, even if it is only $1,200. And I was like, fuck. Oz really wanted a dolly shot. He kept referring, and I was like, I can't get it for him. So then New York, I was like, I want a Fisher dolly, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. I told them how to set it up. And they couldn't even, first off, that dolly to come in was $4,000 for the same thing, same gear, same exact dolly, same Ronin. Everything was $4,000. And in Chicago, it was $1,200. And I'm just like, and I even told them, like, why is it $4,000 in Chicago is $1,200? They're like, well, it's a Fisher dolly. I'm like, well, a Fisher dolly in Chicago is $400 a day.
Yeah.
Like, what? Here it's $1,200. I'm like, for a Fisher dolly? I'm like, why? It's New York. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Like,
is it diamond studded?
Yeah. I'm like, it's the same piece of gear, and then what's crazy is we paid for the Ronin, and then they didn't have time. They had fucking 10 ACs and they didn't have time to set the Ronin up on the Fisher dolly. So we had the dolly out there, but we couldn't use it because it was a shaky shot the whole time. And like, it was just like all this, and it was weird. I'm like, wow, like my team, who was understaffed, delivered on time and then shot better than the team who had everything they needed and still couldn't get the job done. It just was, I don't know. It was kind of like an eye opener of just like how well I'm able to put a team together.
Yes.
And quickly.
And the taste of that too, right?
Yes.
Of when they say we need cinematographers, that you knew that even though they're nice people, the IMAX shooters, and probably have a lot of potential.
They're our friends that we've been shooting with a decade.
Yeah, it's not.
And they were all
hating
excited. Oh my God, we're shooting Kanye. And then we had to call them and say, you're not. Only two people made it off our IMAG team. Because one was a Emmy award-winning nature photographer or videographer who's won stuff for all this stuff shooting in Alaska. But I had him on a 1,000mm lens, and they're like, that makes sense. Like, put the nature guy on a 1,000mm lens to pick off shots. And we used his shots so much. And then this new kid, Carson, who we found him in high school.
Not Carson from Mike and Carson.
No. Okay, this new kid, he's 19. And he's just raw talent, He has a lot of problems because he just doesn't know.
Yeah.
He's still learning how this all works.
Yeah.
But like he has raw talent, and I was like, he doesn't even, his Instagram is just photos. And I showed that to them, and when they could see it in the photos, like, yes, this kid has a good eye, bring him on. And I fought for him. I was just like, no, he needs to be on because he's the youth.
Yes.
He needs to be his generation's. He's his generation's hero right now. Like all his friends who are at DePaul and Columbia now, you know what I'm saying? Like he's the young kid who got to shoot vultures, and you know, and like it was just really nice to be able to, and you could see, and I'm getting texts from you and all these other people in the New York one. What the fuck's going on with the shots?
Yeah.
What's going on with the shots?
Yeah.
Why does it look bad? And I'm like, and then the switching is bad. And it's like, what? Why is there no rhythm? I'm getting texts from all these people. Anna is hitting me up nonstop being like, Joe, who's switching? Is Chris switching right now? I'm like, no, Chris isn't switching. I can tell. It doesn't look good. Like it's offbeat, you know? And I'm just like, I remember he got so mad, he threw his phone, you know, like across the room because like the camera team just wasn't in sync. And I found out they put a call out. So they didn't go out and hire their best known people. They put a call out and then picked people from this like giant list. That's very
shaky.
I know, because of like, yeah, they might have the credentials, but they might have the credentials for other reasons.
Yes.
No, they don't know what the work looks like. I only hire people I work directly with who are my friends or come from like someone who's worked physically with them that I respect highly.
Yes.
And that's it. That's the only way to get into my world.
Because somebody can do the job on paper doesn't mean they're the right person for this job. I remember that this happened years ago when there was like a Selena Williams commercial our team did or something, but I wasn't involved in it. But they put a producer with a DP who on paper was good, but he really messed that shoot up. And it's like, yeah, part of the job is putting the right team together. It's not just who's technically the most qualified. It's who's the right spirit for this job. Because in the moment, even though you're giving them direction, when they're up in the camera, it's kind of on them. Mm-hmm. You might tell them what to do, but they could do fuck all. So you have to trust their instincts in the moment to make these choices that add to the project.
Yeah. And not to toot my own horn, I feel like that is actually the best thing I'm best at is putting a team together from the people I know and using their strengths and weaknesses to elevate the project.
Yes.
Like when we were doing Build-A-Bees, brought in Chris Ho, you know, like crushed it.
Yeah, Mike
Everyone was complaining. Everyone was complaining about his rate. I'm like, guys, the rate he's asking for is pennies to what he gets.
Yes.
But he's going to give us so much insight. And then he ended up giving more than just that production.
Shout out to Chris Ho.
Yeah, I had breakfast with him this morning.
Yeah.
And like, you know, and I feel like that is actually my best attribute is when I hear a project, when people are telling me the project, my brain is just already going, okay, this person, this person, this person, this person, this person, this person, like the makeup, they're going to do, like, you know, like instantly that's where I'm going when you're telling me my project. Yeah. Sometimes I miss out on things. I'm like, wait, hold on, can you say that again? Yeah,
because your gears are already cranking. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, I can combine this team. And that is a beautiful part of the art form, man. But it's so awesome. Irregardless of the logistical issues, man, I'm so proud of you in general, even before this, but it's so dope because as Chicago kids, a lot of our goals is to one day work with Kanye.
Oh my God.
That's like the biggest checkbox, right? So the fact that you got that's incredible, man.
Yeah, because I got my driver's license late. I was like 20 or 19. I was like 19 by the time I got my driver's license. And that's when Kanye came out through the wire. And I remember driving around and I remember listening to that song, not knowing he's from Chicago and that being my favorite song. And I then found out he was from Chicago. And then, you know, the rest is history. He was so big. And I'm like, oh my God, if he's from Chicago, from the South Side, I'm from the South Side. And like, if he can do it, then I can do it. You know, and everyone I talk to has that same sentiment. Yes. Like people are like, why do Chicago people love Kanye so much? It's like, because there was no one from Chicago that did what he's doing.
That artistic, like, creation and that desire to create and keep pushing. I remember reading about him when he was producing for Jay-Z and Rockefeller and everybody. And then I remember we were at Windy City Riot, like in 2004, and Nick B and some other people had College Dropout t-shirts, like merch, promoting the upcoming album College Dropout. Yeah. And I was like, oh shit, like, it just to see it rise, right? And now to see you come full back around to work on the Vultures, man, it's so dope to see.
It was a crazy experience.
Yeah.
And hopefully, you know, and we just finished the Rolling Loud experience. It didn't, you know, Mother Nature, it was acts of God that didn't allow us to fully get the full vision out.
Yeah, the wind and everything.
The wind, yeah, you know, and that happens. But this still looks sick. I'm sorry, you got caught. Rolling Loud, you guys owe Brazil a refund. He got stuck in line to get into the concert for 4 hours, and by the time he got his ticket, it was over. So you guys owe him.
It's funny because it's like I work so much, and it's like I don't go to a lot of shows, but the Kanye shows are the ones that always save money. I'm like, I'm gonna make sure I go, and I made it a whole night. You know what I mean? I bought tickets to the homie, and I was like, we're there. And I even had the Donda vest and everything. And it literally, I showed up at 6, and it wasn't until his set was over that I got to get my wristband. And I was just live streaming it from somebody's phone. And I was like, oh. But it's all good. I'm sure I'll go to another one again. But it's just dope, man. What I like about him, irregardless of whatever the controversies are, as an artist, I have a value system. Mm-hmm. Like Dave Chappelle did a joke once about Kramer, the guy who
from Seinfeld.
Yeah, right. How he bombed at the Laugh Factory and dropped the N-word or whatever it was, right? And Dave Chappelle said that when he was watching that, he realized that he's like 20% black, 80% comedian. Is because the black part of him was like, man, I can't believe you said that. But the comedian part of him was like, he's having a bad night, you know? And so he was reflecting on his actual value system as an artist, right? So on my artistic value system, not a human perspective, but from an artist perspective, to me, one of the biggest sins is withholding gifts. Yeah. If you're able to bring gifts into the world and then you don't, you're kind of being greedy with them, right? And somebody like Ye, he's constantly has an urge to create. It doesn't matter if he does it or if he hires producers or if there's a fucking team of 100 people. He wants to, like, I won't be shocked if he's like 80 still dropping new stuff. Yeah. Because he wants to make stuff and he has that yearning to go for it. And it sounds crazy at the time, but then he makes it happen. And that's so inspiring. It makes me want to take my shit as seriously as he takes his shit.
Yeah. And what's crazy too is like, if you go to any rapper's concert who released their hits in the early 2000s, it's all 40 to 50-year-olds. Yes. Yesterday, it was all high school and college kids. Like, this man is 30 years into his career, and it's all high school and college kids. Meaning, all the music he's creating now, those high school and college kids, this is their music.
So they're gonna listen to this till they're in their 40s or whatever, right? Like he's stamping it. He's gonna live on for a long time.
Forever. Yeah. And like that's what people don't realize. And something that I love once I started traveling the world was I didn't realize how impactful Chicago has been to the rest of the world. Like we invented skyscrapers.
Really?
You know? Yes, the first skyscraper was in Chicago. We figured out how to use the steel to build these giant structures. Then, so you go
was Carnegie in Chicago?
Huh?
Was Andrew Carnegie in Chicago?
No, that was in the Mississippi.
Okay.
And then we figured out how to use that steel to build Sullivan figured out how to make it into skyscrapers. Yeah. So we were the first one of those buildings, and then it went to New York, and then they quickly built all of it. All right. And but so when I travel the world and I visit the Burj Khalifa, and I'm just looking up at it, and I'm like, this all started a 20-story building in Chicago, and now I'm here, like looking up at this building. Yes. You know, like that's and then what's crazy? Then I'm in Dubai, and I'm like, they went to Chicago and modeled their fake river off of Chicago's river and how all the buildings lined it. And then I'm looking around, and I look around at the ground, and everyone is wearing Jordans and Yeezys. Everywhere I go around the world, Jordans and Yeezys are everywhere. And then
because Jordan's from Chicago. Oh wow,
And then you're sitting in a cafe in the middle of Thailand, and you're like, and they're playing house music. And house music is from Chicago. Yes. And like I go to Paris, there's house music and Jordans and Yeezys and skyscrapers. And like I'm like, holy shit. Like and a lot of people from foreign countries don't even know Chicago exists. Right. And it's like created so much for the world.
So much talent. Yeah. So much cultural influence from Chicago for sure.
Like Wrigley chewing gum.
Chewing gum is like my stress reliever.
You love gum.
I stay with like packs of gum. I have it on Amazon. I order.
It's like a rotating.
Every month I get a pack of Dentine Ice and Orbit strawberries.
That's amazing.
Well, bro, I feel like we could be talking for hours, but it's really dope to know somebody from multiple decades. Mm-hmm. Right? And I feel so old saying this now, but now I really actually feel really young. But I remember when my parents used to say, I've known him for 20 years. You're like, oh, that sounds crazy. Yeah. But I remember I met you doing like a skate competition video edit.
The 99 Yeah.
Maybe early 2000s. I think like 02, 03 or something like that. It was like...
No, it was before then because of 02, I was already graduated high school. It was before.
Well, it had to be between 99 and 02. I started skating like in 99, 2000.
So it was
right.
like 2000, 2001.
So like almost 25 years now that I've known you. And I remember you were the guy that had the fisheye lens. It wasn't even on the GL. It was before the GL. Did you have a camera before the GL?
Yes.
Did you have
So then that was definitely when I was, because I didn't get the GL. I got that as a graduation present of high school.
Yeah, it was the one before that. I think you came to the Kentucky Battle or something.
Yes. Yeah. So that was that was like 2000, 2001.
Yeah. And it was just so dope to see us all. We're all like aspiring videographers. And we had dreams of doing it up, right? And then you see it decades later. Look at this. We're all doing it. And in a way, we've always made it, and in a way, we feel like we're never making it.
Yeah.
Right? It feels like, I'm barely getting started.
Yeah.
Like,
no,
I feel
that's
like,
how I felt yesterday. Everyone's congratulating everyone, and I'm just like, it just felt like normal, you know? And then also I'm like, there's more. This is not it yet.
Yeah.
This is not it yet.
It's not the peak of what you can contribute.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a great accomplishment to do that, to do multiple Kanye Vulture or Ye Vulture show, right? But you know what you're capable of.
Yeah.
And every time you achieve more, now you realize, it's like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah.
The more you do, the more you realize that you haven't done, because you can do so much more. Right?
Yeah. And I want to ask you, did you know at an early age this is what you wanted to do?
Yes.
Like when was that?
I mean, I was shooting home videos in Brazil, and I moved here like in '98. And then when I came here, I would always hog the family camcorder. My dad would be getting a shot. I'd be like, no, Dad, do it this way, right? And I had a little model train set, and I had wrestling action figures of like The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah.
And I would do stop motion animation with my home camera when I was like in 5th grade, 6th grade. Then I started rollerblading. And then I started making skate videos, but I didn't have an editing computer, so I would mix two VHSs with the PlayStation.
Yeah.
Record, play, record the RCA chords. I thought I invented editing. I was like, this is crazy. It just felt so natural. It just felt like, why wouldn't I make content?
Yeah.
It just like, I like this clip. I like the song. They should go together. And then I started filming my friends skating, and that's where it all made sense. That's where I saw the model of a skater.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, you film your friends skating, you get sponsored, you make a t-shirt, you sell the t-shirt, you get to travel and go make skate videos. It was a world of creation, of independent creation. And then I just knew it. I just knew it. I was like, oh yeah. I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur, and I knew I was going to be a creator. Like when I was a kid, I was like, I'm going to own a business and I'm going to make art. Both those things just felt so true that's why I dropped out of high school when I was like 16. I was like, oh, this
is a waste of time.
This is a training camp for employees.
Yeah. And you weren't an employee.
No.
Yeah. And I mean, it's the same, because people are like, I'll see friends struggling at 40 still, not figuring out what they're trying to do. And like, I feel blessed because I remember when it happened. Like, I was raised on MTV. So I was from like 92 on, I just watched MTV. So I was always watching music videos. And I remember it was like 7th grade. It was like 1997, and it felt like a beam of light. I remember it was an English class, and I was drawing like a Marilyn Manson logo and a Korn logo, and like a beam of, it felt like a wash come over me, and I was like, oh, this is what I'm gonna make music videos. And I didn't even have a camera yet, but it just like this. I was like, I'm gonna do that. That's what I want to do. I want to make music videos. I want to do that, and I'm gonna pursue that. And I didn't know how to pursue it. But then I had just started skating then, and then I was like, oh, like the same thing. I was like, oh, well, I'll get a camera and I'll just start filming my friends.
Yes.
And then one thing led to another, and it wasn't even one thing. I was like, oh, this is how I'm gonna get to music videos.
Yes.
I'm gonna make skate videos,
Yes.
and then they're gonna bring music, and then that's exactly how it happened.
Yeah, my first Tyga video I got because he saw a skate video that I did that I showed to his producer, which I met at a concert in Chicago.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, you work with what you got to get to where you want to go. You know? It's beautiful, man. I love that. I love seeing your growth. You've always been an out-of-the-box guy, even in your skating.
My God, my skate edits used to be crazy.
Yeah, I remember you did this one edit where somebody like chewed up a piece of paper and spit it back out or something.
Yeah.
And I remember when we were moving to Chicago, I'll show my mom, look, there's these videographers in Chicago. They're very creative. Look at this edit. And I don't know, what edit was that? It was some...
It was called Noah's Ark.
Yeah, something like that. It was more effort than the tradition called for.
Yeah.
And that's what I liked about it.
Yeah.
Same thing I liked about the Be Unique videos in the skate video world, right? Their editing was so more effortful than anything else.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, they actually made a good intro.
And the reason why I did that is my crew wasn't the best. But I wanted the pros to know who I was. So I made my edits like a Michelle Gondry music video.
Yes.
I took Michelle Gondry and brought it to Skate Edits, and then I like did weird stop motion, weird like freeze frame. I would print out a freeze frame and have it on a wall, and then you pan, and then that would be the transition. Or one time we built 2 doors and we traveled with them to every skate spot, so the skater would exit a door, hit the trick, and then go into the door, and that was the transitions into each section, and it worked. Then all of a sudden, Alex Broska, I was like the best in the world. I'm catching wind. He loves my edits. I'm like, what? He watched them? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh my God. And like John Julio is like, oh my God, your edits are crazy. Not the best skating, but like what you're doing is insane. Like, and I'm like, oh my God, it's working, And then I got the vision to put myself in my own edits.
Yes.
So when I would show up to comps, people knew who I was.
Smart.
And it worked.
That's like Tarantino put himself in his movies.
And it worked. And then like Drew Bacharach and the Life Plus guys, like, you're the guy who made the edits. Come hang out with us, And I was like, oh, it totally worked. Like,
and it's funny because now in a way you're like still doing it, right?
Yeah, but only now it's funny because now my skate edits are very classic skate edits.
Now.
B-roll skate clips. Straight to the point.
Well, yeah, it's funny. It's kind of like the same. Well, I think a great artist is in the form like a contrarian, right? Like you guys did skinny jeans when everybody was doing baggy.
Yeah.
But now baggy jeans are coming back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right?
And the funny thing is I've been now wearing baggy jeans since 2014. So I've been done with skinny jeans forever, and now
we're past that.
And now it's funny. Now the same people that were making the same group of type of person that was making fun of us for wearing skinny jeans, they're still wearing skinny jeans, and I'm just like, that's funny.
That is funny. The influence of culture, man. What do you want for the future? As we wrap up here, like, I know it's such a crazy question, but like, what are you yearning for now? You got 4 kids. You just turned 40. Work with Ye. You got your business. What else?
I mean, to do bigger projects, to do bigger, more impactful, more important, not more important on a superficial, like, do the Grammys or whatever. No, like to do things that actually help people feel something.
Right. Like that Middle of America project you talk about. Yeah. What would a failure feel like to you now? As in, like, if 20 years from now you reflected on these next 20 years and you thought, man, they were a failure, why would that be?
It would be like probably losing like a good business relationship. That would be a failure, which I've had recently, because projects went awry, and then like that 10 years of friends just is gone now. You know what I'm saying? Like those, and that's a failure. That's a failure. But
what else would make it feel like the opposite of a goal, right? Like, goal is what you want to go right. What do you not want to go wrong? Like, how would you feel like if you fail? So if you lost relationships?
If I'm not there for my family, that would be the big one. Is not being there for my partner Anna, and not being there for the kids, and making sure that, making sure that we could give them the best of what we can offer to be prepared for this world. And right now I feel like I'm struggling with the oldest because of like, we're trying to get her into high school. And if you know anything about getting kids into high school in Chicago, it's harder than college. And like to get them into a good school. And unfortunately, she can't test. She doesn't test. She has all A's, but then her standardized testing is like the bottom 10%. She like freezes up, doesn't do well.
Something about them, yeah.
Yeah, but then, she works on she's a PA now on all our productions. She works well in that environment.
She was at the Vultures joint, right?
Yeah, she worked on Vultures. Yeah, we hired her for Vultures. And like, she got hired to work on the Chance stuff, and now she's trying to direct her own music videos, and she has her nail business that she's trying to do, and so maybe like getting into high school, actually, maybe I shouldn't even put her into high school. Maybe
that's what we were talking about, having that call about.
I wanted you to talk to her to like maybe help guide her and like, show her, because of like the kids keep proving to me like, look, I could do all my schoolwork in 2 hours. So I could do what it takes me 2 hours in 8 hours.
Yeah.
So then the rest of the 6 hours we're wasting time when we could be I could be working on nails, learning how to get faster. I could be editing.
Yes.
I could be videoing. I
Learning
could be,
real world shit.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, I like. And, you know, she wants to do sell juice in the summer or
Yeah.
make soup in the winter. Like they have
Yeah.
ideas all the time. It's crazy. This like alpha generation, they're very entrepreneur minded. Her and all her friends are always coming up. They needed money.
Oh, that's great.
One
I'm really
time,
happy to hear that.
So they went to Target, bought a bunch of. They had $10. They bought a bunch of cookies, put them in bags, went around,
Yes.
and they made $200 in 3 hours.
Yes, bro, that was one of my first hustles.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
One of my first ones was when they would give you the box of candies to sell for like a fundraiser for school,
Yeah.
and they have to give the box back at the end
Yeah.
of the fucking thing. I would just tell them I lost the box, keep it, go to Sam's Club, refill it, and then just flip the candy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that entrepreneurial mindset is a survivor mindset.
Yeah.
It really is. It's not like I'm a business owner or I'm not. It's I'm a problem solver, value provider.
Yeah.
Buy the cookies, bag them up, sell them.
Yeah. And they would go, they get buzzed into one condo, and then they go knock on every condo door and just be like, hey.
Genius.
Because they were actually, they're like, we're saving up money for our babysitter's license. And that's what they would say. And then, yeah, they made $200 in like 3 hours. And then they divided it amongst the three of them. Like, and
those are skills for life. Better than handing her a bunch of money.
Yes.
Showing her that she could generate hundreds of dollars out of thin air.
Yeah.
That's really the wealth right there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because, I mean, even if you build a fortune, people lose fortunes.
Yeah.
There's people with hundreds of millions of dollars that have it all just disappear.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, but if you give them the ability to fish, right? As the old book says.
Yeah.
That's great, man.
Yeah.
I feel that. I love that. Family is important.
It is important.
I can't wait to have one,
if
man.
if you people on the far left don't start having kids, everything you fought for the last 15 years will be gone, because the other side is having 3 to 5 kids per family, and that shit will be gone in one generation.
That's a great selling point.
Like, I don't get it.
If you want what you believe in to keep existing, you have to have kids. And influence
so,
them.
And I always tell a lot of my artist friends, I'm 40 and there's like, I can only send parenting memes to 6 friends. And I'm like, that's insane. And all my friends are artists. So then what are we creating the art for? Who, if we're not creating it for people, like, if we're not creating more people, then who are we creating this art for? Who are we creating these experiences for? Like, right now we have a 40 million person deficit because millennials aren't having babies. And they're like, and everyone's like, oh, well, you know, it's just, you know, it's hard if you don't have money. Bro, I had my first daughter when I was making $1,200 a month. And I was making $1,200 a month for like years.
Right.
And still like gave my daughter, she had a great time.
Yes.
You know, she had these crazy experiences.
She has such a unique life.
Yeah, and it's actually, I'm sad because I just had 2 new kids. One's just turned 1, and then her younger sister is like 10 days old. And I'm sad that they're not going to have the same experiences that Lully had. Because Lully had an adventure of a life.
Right.
In a good way.
She went from like sleeping in the closet to like working on festivals and
yes,
stuff.
But not even that. Like, she at like 8, she was sponsored by Moxie roller skates. You know, and like, and she got to be on movie sets growing up between 8 and 12. And then, you know, now is doing festivals and working them. And 2 years ago, she was wrangling cord for me while I was shooting video for Lil Uzi Vert. And he pulls her up on stage, hands her the mic, walks off, and has Lully perform his closing song. And
that's
that closed
epic. We need a clip of that on this.
Yeah, and that closed out the festival. And like, so it's like, yeah, and then, you know, you know, it's like, oh man, I'm like sad because of the little ones aren't going to they'll get a different life, but they won't get that adventure of a life.
Yes. That's amazing, man. I think that's something that I'm most, I'm inspired by you in a lot of ways, but that's one as well. Because you're living the truth that I know is true, and that having kids is not a stop to your creativity. My parents had me when they were both artists, you know?
Yeah.
And I was a baby backstage while my mom was doing ballet shows, right? So I want to have kids one day, man. I can't wait to do it. I feel like that's the ultimate creative project. Like,
yes, that is the ultimate creative project, is being a creator. And the best way to be a creator is having kids. Because you're physically creating, like, new life. And that's the ultimate creation, is life.
Make love, not war.
Yes.
That'll be the theme of the podcast.
I do want to say, I am building up a small family of, like, production. Zibby, the 10-year-old, she saw a deck and now has taught herself how to make decks. And every week asks me a new subject to make decks. And so, and she has a very, at first I was trying to train Lully to be a producer.
Yeah.
That's not her. But she can, I realized she can direct and edit music videos.
Ooh, so she has the rhythm and the flavor.
And then Zibby, she has that producer. She's a very A-type. So she has
logistical,
that. Yes. Anything you give her with logistical thinking, she smashes it out. So she's like, if I get old enough, will you hire me to make decks? So she's out there every week practicing how to make
PowerPoint
pitch decks.
yeah.
She is.
That's more important. I think school should really only be to learn how to read and write and do math, and then the rest of it should be real world shit.
Yeah.
Because that's what you do once you graduate, is you go into the world and you're like, oh, this is crazy. People have jobs. That's wild.
Yeah, well, and that's my goal is by the time they're 16 and 18, they're getting paid full day rates in the creative world, not PA rates. And I tell them that all the time. If you start now, like Zibby, you're 10. By the time you get 6 years of experience of making decks and how to write budgets, bro, I could hire you at 16 to be my assistant and make $500 a day.
Yes.
Like Lully, like you're PAing, and right now she's making $150 to $200 a day as a PA. That's a lot of money for a 14-year-old.
Yes.
Especially for 3 days in a row. $600, you know.
Of just spending cash when she doesn't have, you know, crazy bills. Yeah.
And I tell her, like, hey, Lully, if you really like filming and editing, by the time you're 18, so that's 4 years of experience, you could be pulling in $1,000 a day. Yes. Easy.
Yes.
You know, and I'm like, and I'm not even telling you that's what you need to do for the rest of your life.
But you could. It's an option.
It's a skill that you could develop to just generate income.
Yes.
For yourself.
Or to still skill stack for a project, right?
Yeah.
Like you can learn Photoshop and pitch deck and filming and editing, not even to be those things, but to do those things for your thing.
Yeah.
Like she might have a nail salon business idea or a restaurant, but she'll need to do a deck for the restaurant and then edit the menu for the thing, right? These are complementary skills.
Make content to promote.
Yeah. Yeah. Because really you should learn from every job and carry that on to the next thing. So that the most valuable person is somebody who can solve many problems.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I got a guy, or I can fix it, or I know that. How do you know that? I just know.
Yeah.
You know, and it's funny, I'm going to do a video about the myth of the jack of all trades not being valuable, because a master is somebody who's very, valuable, but a jack of all trades is somebody who puts a project together.
Yeah. And those are producers.
Those are producers. Because you can't put a team of people doing shit if you don't know anything about that thing.
So a producer is your Swiss Army knife, and then the producer hires masters.
Yes. Yes. And that's a key position. Well, dude, thank you for the stories and the value and everything. I feel like the listeners are going to get a lot out of this. And I think my takeaway from it is believing in yourself. It sounds so simple to say, but like, it's not just theoretically, oh, I believe in myself. You acted as if. Yeah. You showed up. And if the jobs didn't work out, you're like, I'll find a way. Yeah. You know, you're like, oh, this job got taken away. I'm going to find a way.
There's a reason.
Yes.
Because there's a reason the reason I lost those jobs at the beginning of the year. If I took those jobs, I would not have been able to do the Vultures jobs.
Sometimes things not going according to plan give you exactly what you need, right? It's I think Sadhguru, this guy was saying that I hope all your dreams don't come true and that you get something much better that you didn't even think of.
Yes. And that's what's been happening my whole career. I thought I was going to be a famous music video director. I did like 6. Right. And 2 were really good. My first 2 that I did were the best music videos I've ever made. Yeah. And they put me on the map and they were influential for the culture. And that's what sucked was my first try, I did my goal that I wanted in 7th grade. I wanted to be on MTV. I wanted to have a write-up in Rolling Stone. And, you know, I wanted to win an award for it, but I could have, but I didn't know that you actually had to submit. Yeah. I thought it just magically, like, it's good, so it happened. I didn't know you had to submit. Probably would have won something. It would have. It definitely would have won some awards. Yeah. And so it's like, oh, I did that first try. Now it's time to move on to the next thing.
Because you're overall creative, man. Yeah. Thank you for coming, bro.
Thanks for having me.
Everybody, thank you for watching. This is GL Joe. Whoosh. Make love, not war. Have kids. Populate the earth.
Populate the earth.
Make art.
It's the best change is make kids and teach them to be good people.
Facts. It's a wrap.